Chapter 655. So, a 10,000 beast fruit can allow you to obtain a powerful demon beast as a helper. Isn't this valuable? After listening to Ji Shu's explanation, everyone's face couldn't help but reveal a deep sense of surprise. They didn't expect that the 10,000 beast fruit could not only strengthen the demon beast bloodline and demonic energy, but could also allow the demon beast to get close to humans and treat them as a companion. In this way, everyone suddenly understood. No wonder the ancient city's residents were able to survive in the wind-soaring origin. The reason was because of the 10,000 beast fruit. Now, the ancient city was empty and had become an empty city. Under the situation where no one was managing it, the 10,000 beast fruit suddenly became the source of competition for the demon beasts. The potential value of the 10,000 beast fruit is extremely great. If you can let a beast king eat the 10,000 beast fruit that you pluck, it's equivalent to having a helper at the profound world realm. Many big forces buy the 10,000 beast fruit at a high price, but usually there's no market for it. Ji Shu said. Hearing you say this, I'm a little tempted. Chu Hen smiled as some anticipation surged in his eyes. Then get ready to fight for it. Su Lang, Ling Tao, and the others were also eager to give it a try. It was rare for them to come to the wind-soaring origin and encounter this so-called 10,000 beast fruit. If they just let it go, it would be a waste of God's gift. Don't rush. Ji Shu softly stopped everyone and said, plucking this 10,000 beast fruit is also very particular. When the 10,000 beast fruit is hanging on the treetop, it's at its weakest and its flesh is extremely soft. Even a little bit of brute force would be enough to damage it. Then how do we pluck it? We can't be like demon beasts and just bite and swallow it, right? Hua Shui asked. Ji Shu shook his head. Just cut off the stem. At the end of the stem, the 10,000 beast fruit will naturally leave the treetop. At this time, we can collect it. But remember, it's best not to touch the fruit itself. Only after the 10,000 beast fruit leaves the treetop will its flesh become hard. Soon, Ji Shu explained the many characteristics of the 10,000 beast fruit in detail and at a fast pace. Everyone listened with astonishment and amazement. They didn't expect this strange fruit to be so particular. The world was indeed big and full of wonders. However, in this kind of chaotic situation, if he wanted to calmly cut off the stalk of the fruit and snatch the 1,000 beast fruit, it really seemed to be a little difficult. Roar! Roar! The frenzied beast tide was like a black tsunami that engulfed and flattened many buildings in the ancient city. At the same time, the human wuxio experts also flew towards the center of the ancient city without any delay. In comparison, everyone's main goal was still the heaven and earth mystic yellow token hidden here. The world was in chaos, the vault of heaven was dark, and 3,000 bolts of lightning moved. The entire wind-soaring source seemed to be shrouded in a violent storm. Very soon, Chu Hen, Dan Zhun, and the others became the first group of people to arrive at the center of the ancient city, along with a dozen or so fierce shadows. Then, 4 ancient towers appeared in everyone's line of sight. These 4 pagodas were all over 300 meters tall, and they were divided into 7 levels. They were narrow at the top and wide at the bottom, and they were imposing and majestic. They stood in the 4 directions of north, south, east, and west, and they were like 4 inviolable gods. In the middle area of these 4 ancient pagodas, there was a spacious manor. Within the manor, there were many towering trees with luxuriant branches and leaves. Between the branches of the trees, there were many thousand beast fruits that were shining brightly and were shining brightly. At a glance, the number of 1,000 beast fruits here was more than 1,000. Boom! More than 1,000 10,000 beast fruits suddenly made everyone's eyes light up. This was definitely a huge fortune. At this time, no one cared about where the heaven and earth yellow order was hidden. In an instant, a group of swift and fierce figures rushed towards the lush, towering fruit trees without saying a word. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The hurried sound of breaking wind was unusually cold. A woman holding a long whip in her hand had a cold look in her eyes, and the long whip in her hand flew out like a spirit snake. A series of whip shadows were formed in the air, and 5 or 6 crystal-clear thousand-beast fruits immediately left the treetops and fell down due to gravity. The thousand-beast fruits that left the treetops released a soft light pattern at any time, and this layer of light pattern quickly condensed, looking like a thin light curtain round cover. Just like what Jishu said just now, the thousand-beast fruits that left the branches would instead protect themselves and would not be easily injured by brute force. Then, the woman raised her wrist slightly, and the long whip quickly retracted, like a spirit snake, wrapped around the thousand-beast fruits, and returned to her hand. Zung! A sharp sword aura burst out, and a man wielding a sword shot out a few beams of chi, cutting off the stems of a few thousand-beast fruits. Then his figure moved, and he raised his hand to collect the fruits that fell down. There were still many people who knew about the thousand-beast fruit, this kind of treasure. Most of them knew how to collect them. There were also some people who did not know about the thousand-beast fruits with brute force, and when they forcibly pulled the fruit down, the thousand-beast fruit was like a ball of golden mud that shattered in the palm of their hands. "Hey, idiot, it's better for you to die far away." A sarcastic voice sounded, and the man who had not yet recovered from the mud on his hand was shocked. He suddenly raised his head, and his pupils that had shrunk to the size of a needlepoint reflected a sharp and dazzling sickle. Hiss! A series of blood splattered in the air, and then a head that had been cut in half flew out. What followed was a bloodthirsty, strange laughter that reverberated in the air. On the other side, a young man dressed in white was surrounded by a illusory snake shadow, and the snake shadow coiled around his body like a powerful dragon's handle. While the other party was collecting the thousand-beast fruits, he was also continuously ordering the surrounding humans, Wuxiu, to kill. His methods were cruel and merciless. Although there were nearly 1,000 beast fruits, there were too many monks and not enough gruel. Everyone quickly began to fight for the 1,000 beast fruits. "Move faster!" Danjin looked back at the black wave-like army of beasts behind her. When the demonic beasts rushed over, it would be even more chaotic. They had to seize the 1,000 beast fruits before the arrival of the demonic beasts. "Okay." The people of Mount Kunliu responded in a deep voice. Then, without saying a word, they flew up one after another and turned into streams of light, rushing towards the huge 1,000 beast fruit trees in front of them. Screech! Danjun stretched out her left hand, and a dozen or so beautiful vine-like light patterns intertwined with each other and gathered in her palm. Then, they quickly turned into a shadow wing of light that was half a meter wide and swept out. A majestic wave of air trembled in the air, and the shadow wing flew out like an aurora, instantly cutting off the stems of a dozen or so 1,000 beast fruits. Then, Danjun moved her right palm, and a surging suction force erupted, sucking the dozen or so 1,000 beast fruits in her bag. Su Lang, Ling Tao, Fu Qin, Ji Shu, Qi Teng, and the others also joined the fight for the 1,000 beast fruits. At this moment, Chu Hen unhurriedly flashed to the area above the manor. Then, a particularly powerful sword aura burst out from his body, and the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth produced a strange rhythm. Chu Hen's body bloomed with a holy brilliance like that of the sun. One sword flying immortal technique. Boom! In the next moment, hundreds of dazzling and sharp sword chis were released from Chu Hen's body. The sword images that filled the sky were like 10,000 swords returning to their origin. They were also like arrows that were shot at the same time as they flew in all directions. The piercingly cold sword auras tore through the air and attacked the 1,000 beast fruits hanging on the branches. Yes, Xing! A series of extremely sharp sword chi streaked across the treetops, cutting off the stems of the fruits accurately and causing the fruits to fall down. In the next moment, Chu Hen directly turned into a meteor, dragging a gorgeous arc of light in the void. Wherever the arc of light went, the 1,000 beast fruits that had not yet fallen to the ground were directly swept away. F*CK. A voice filled with anger came out of the mouth of a human martial cultivator. A second ago, there were still dozens of 10,000 beast fruits hanging on the tree, but in the blink of an eye, there wasn't a single one left. This made him want to curse out loud. Which wild kid is so ruthless? Didn't your mother teach you that everyone who sees it has a share? Which sex brat is he from? Don't you know that good things should be shared? One after another, gorgeous sword shadows were like flying shuttles of light that traced back thousands of years. They swept through the treetops, pierced through the branches, and cut off the fruit stems. Every sword shadow seemed to have eyes, and they were especially accurate. The sword light was like a rainbow, gorgeous and domineering. Wherever Chu Hen went, the 1,000 beast fruits were all snatched away by him. Seeing this scene, even the people from Mount Kunliu were dumbfounded. Using the one-sword flying immortal technique to fight for the 1,000 beast fruits. If the patriarch of Mount Kunliu, who created this martial art, knew about this, his coffin would probably tremble violently. However, it had to be said that Chu Hen's efficiency was really extraordinary. It was as if others used a basin to catch fish, but he directly used a net to catch it. It was no wonder that this caused a torrent of curses from the surrounding people. Mother asterisk cur, this was simply too ruthless. Roar. Howl. In the blink of an eye, the endless tide of monsters had already broken through the layers of obstacles and arrived here. Boom! The ancient pagoda in the south was the first to collapse. Like a heavenly pillar, it smashed down and set off a monstrous cloud of dust and sand. Following that, the ancient pagoda in the north and east also collapsed. Under the brutal charge of the monsters, the majestic buildings were flattened into ruins one after another. Seeing this situation, the crowd of Wuxiu hurriedly seized the last bit of time to fight for the few thousand beast fruits left. When a monster horde pounced, the scene would be as chaotic as it could get. However, at this moment, a figure that exuded an extremely dangerous aura suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen. Chapter 656. Rumble. The terrifying beast tide was like a torrent that had broken through a dam, and the continuous heavy bangs stacked on top of each other. The three ancient towers that stood towering in the south, east, and north of the manor collapsed one after another. They were like three majestic pillars of the heavens that collapsed and collapsed bit by bit, layer by layer, and then fiercely smashed down. Many of the beasts that did not manage to dodge in time were smashed into meat paste. In the blink of an eye, only the ancient pagoda in the west was left standing there alone. Seeing this, the human Wuxiu hurriedly sped up to collect the remaining 1,000 beast fruits. However, just at that moment, a cold and fierce aura that emitted extreme danger suddenly rushed over from behind Chu Hen. Hey, stupid thing, what's the use of snatching so many 1,000 beast fruits? I won't let you live to enjoy them. What? Chu Hen's expression changed slightly, and a cold light flashed in the corner of his eyes. From the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of a fierce figure with disheveled hair and a sturdy figure that exuded a ferocious aura. The most frightening thing was the sharp weapon in his hand. It shone with a cold light, like an evil scythe used by the Grim Reaper to harvest human lives. You can go to hell now, he, accompanied by a sinister and strange laughter, a dazzling light burst out, and the sharp scythe dragged a series of dazzling light shadows in the air. It tore through the air, rolled up a thick aura of death, and slashed at Chu Hen. This sudden scene immediately made the faces of the people on Mount Kunliu change dramatically. No one expected that the expert from the Fong clan would suddenly attack Chu Hen. Meanwhile, the people around were gloating. Who asked Chu Hen to snatch so many 1,000 beast fruits? It was only right that he was killed. Buzz, buzz. In an instant, Chu Hen's left hand suddenly blossomed with a strong silver holy radiance, and a pattern of 7 Big Dipper stars suddenly appeared in the center of his palm. Powerful energy fluctuations surged out. Chu Hen's entire arm was surrounded by holy light, and the boundless power he exuded was as if he was holding a sun and a star. Chu Hen's reaction speed was extremely fast. His left hand grasped the power of the stars and faced the death scythe head-on. Bang! The collision of the two caused a deafening explosion. It was as if two mountains had unexpectedly collided. A surging wave of chi swept across the void. Gorgeous light patterns bloomed like misty rain. The two fierce forces collided, and layers of aftershocks could be faintly seen. Bang! It only managed to block for a moment, and the star power in Chu Hen's palm was immediately crushed and shattered. After all, they were defending in a hurry, and the man was a profound world realm expert. In the blink of an eye, Chu Hen's aura was directly suppressed. The huge impact force that was comparable to a mountain poured down, and Chu Hen was directly blown away, smashing hard on the ground from the sky. And the area behind Chu Hen happened to be the ancient tower in the west that had not yet collapsed. However, the inertial impact force on Chu Hen's body was also enough to smash the ancient tower. However, something that surprised everyone suddenly happened. At the moment when Chu Hen crashed into the ancient pagoda on the west side, a layer of water ripples actually appeared in the air. Under the astonished gazes of the surrounding people, Chu Hen seemed to pass through a transparent light screen and directly disappeared without a trace. What happened? Everyone present was shocked. The man of the Fong clan who was holding the scythe focused his cold eyes, and a cold light flashed in his pupils. The white-clothed man of the Heavenly Serpent clan, Qi Liansheng, also immediately flew in this direction. This tower is strange. Could the heaven and earth yellow token be hidden inside? An exclamation filled with excitement exploded in everyone's ears like a clap of thunder. Dan Zhun, Fu Qin, Su Lang, and the others on Mount Kunliu were also extremely shocked, and their eyes were filled with a deep sense of solemnity. Bang! Several heavy sounds rang out. Chu Hen knocked over a dozen counterframes in a row before he was able to stop. Damn it! Chu Hen cursed fiercely, and a layer of frost immediately covered his cold face. The attack just now had shaken all the meridians in his body, and the blood in his body surged up, making him feel slightly uncomfortable. If he had not reacted in time and used the Dubhe Star Soul Pearl to block the attack, he was afraid that he would not have been able to keep his arm. This was enough to show that the man of the Fong clan was 100% determined to kill him, and he did not show any mercy at all. A cold light surged in Chu Hen's eyes, but soon, many questions emerged in Chu Hen's mind. Was this inside the ancient tower? The answer was obvious. Chu Hen stood up and looked around. In the dim environment, the surroundings seemed relatively empty. Most of the bookshelves and counters had been knocked down, and all kinds of books and scrolls were scattered everywhere. Was this the place where the books were kept? Some doubts and caution surged in Chu Hen's mind. Just as he took a step forward, he stepped on something extremely hard. Chu Hen subconsciously lowered his head to take a look, only to see a strange token lying on the ice-cold ground. Chu Hen's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes lit up. He hurriedly bent down and picked up the order token. This was a dark golden order token that was as big as an adult's palm. It had the shape of a fan and looked like a quarter of a circle. The token was engraved with a pattern that was twisted like a flame, and the word order was engraved in the middle. Chu Hen subconsciously flipped the token over, and the word Xian on the reverse side impressively came into view. Heaven and Earth yellow token. The Xian token. The sudden surprise excited Chu Hen. It turned out to be one of the 4 Heaven and Earth mystic yellow tokens, the Xian token. He did not expect it to be hidden here. It was really a case of wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search and finding it by chance. Boom! Bang! Before Chu Hen had time to be happy, the ground shook, and the entire tower shook violently. Continuous heavy sounds swept out, and large pieces of stones quickly fell from above. The people outside were not fools. Among the 4 towers in the ancient city, only this tower on the west side was special. Anyone could guess that the Heaven and Earth mystic yellow token was most likely hidden here. However, they did not rush in to look for it. Instead, they used the simplest and most violent method. Bang! The terrifying force instantly hit the ancient tower full of holes, creating huge holes one after another. The huge tower shook, and in an instant, it ushered in the moment of collapse. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. Did the group of people outside really intend to bury him alive? Immediately, Chu Hen put away the Xian token, dodged the falling stones, and quickly rushed outside. The interior of the huge tower was still very spacious, like a spacious palace. The surrounding bookshelves were everywhere, and all kinds of items were smashed. Just as Chu Hen was about to leave, a stone pillar that was more than 10 feet tall fell from the sky and solidly smashed onto a bookshelf in front of Chu Hen. This bookshelf looked ordinary, made of ordinary wood, and was covered with a thick layer of dust. If it was anyone else, they would not even look at it. It gave people the feeling that the items on this bookshelf were most likely not important. Boom! The impact produced by the stone pillar directly tore the bookshelf into pieces. Countless splinters and splinters flew everywhere. The close to 100 books and scrolls that were placed on top of it flew everywhere. However, at this moment, the corner of Chu Hen's eyes flashed, and he saw that among the wantonly flying books, there was actually a dark purple scroll mixed in. He did not know if it was an illusion or something else. In that instant, Chu Hen felt that the scroll actually emitted an obscure wave of energy. In that split second of hesitation, Chu Hen moved his palm and released a strong suction force that sucked the scroll into his hand. A heavy feeling flowed through his fingertips, and Chu Hen suddenly felt a wisp of inner chi in his body flow into it. Immediately after, the scroll actually emitted wisps of strange dark purple light patterns. As expected, there was a problem. With a thought, Chu Hen immediately put the scroll into his storage ring. Then he displayed the arcade light movement technique, and with a shio sound, he flashed out a hole in the body of the tower. Boom! Chapter 657. Rumble. A towering wave of air swept out in all directions, and a strong gust of wind mixed with fine sand and dust swept out. In an instant, the huge pagoda on the west side collapsed with a loud rumble. The surrounding people quickly retreated, and almost at the same time, a young figure with slightly disheveled clothes quickly flew out from the rubble. Chu Hen. The eyes of Hua Shui, Fu Qin, Qi Tung, Su Lang, and the others from Mount Kunliu lit up. Chu Hen was indeed fine. Just now, they were still worried that something would happen to him. But when they saw that Chu Hen's aura was not too chaotic, their worries faded a little. Shan Zhen frowned slightly, looking at Chu Hen with a somewhat solemn expression. It should be known that what happened next was not going to be easy. Roar! Roar! The black mass of demonic beasts directly occupied the entire ancient city like a tide. At a glance, the ancient city that had existed for half a cup of tea's time had now been reduced to ruins. Many demonic beasts began to frantically fight for the last dozens of thousand beast fruits. However, the group of human experts from Wu Xiu no longer paid attention to the group of demonic beasts below. They all hovered in the void, each occupying a corner of the sky. You're actually not dead yet? The scythe-wielding man from the Liao clan stared coldly at Chu Hen, who had returned to Mount Kunliu's group. The corners of his mouth that were stained with blood curled into a sinister smile. Chu Hen's cold eyes narrowed, and a cold glint surged in them. Whoosh! At this time, the white-robed man from the Heavenly Serpent clan, who was surrounded by a dragon shadow, also looked down at Chu Hen's group. Hand over the heaven and earth black-yellow order. Qi Liancheng's voice was cold, and his eyes emitted an undefiable majesty. Hearing the words heaven and earth black-yellow order, everyone's heart trembled, and their eyes all fell on Chu Hen. In particular, the group from Mount Kunliu was even more nervous. There was no doubt that they were very conflicted in their hearts. They hoped that Chu Hen had obtained the black-yellow order, but they also hoped that he hadn't. If he got his hands on it, he would definitely become the target of everyone and be surrounded by everyone. If he didn't get it, it would mean that his trip to the wind-soaring origin would be fruitless. Chu Hen's expression was relatively calm in the face of the powerful deterrent that was being emitted from Qi Liancheng's body. He shrugged his shoulders, spread his hands, and said, "Do you think that I can find the heaven and earth mystic yellow token in such a short period of time?" As soon as he said that, many people's expressions relaxed. Indeed, as soon as Chu Hin entered the ancient pagoda, the people outside had already started to attack him. He didn't even have the time to escape, let alone look for other things. Huh, Chi Lianchong sneered. He raised his eyelids and said indifferently, "In that case, the heaven and earth mystic yellow order is still buried in the ruins below." "Maybe," Chu Hen replied. I'll do as you say. I'll flip it." Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful and cold aura suddenly spread out from Chi Lianchong's body. Everyone's expressions changed. Everyone could feel the mountain-like pressure from the other party's body. Chi Lianchong spread his arms, and a violent rhythm was set off between heaven and earth. Then, countless illusory gray streaks of light appeared in the void in front of him. The gray streaks of light spread out for hundreds of feet and rotated rapidly like a nebula whirlpool. Strong winds piled up like a raging wave. In an instant, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the rocks and tiles on the ground broke free from the gravity and left the ground, slowly rising into the sky. A majestic and monstrous aura shocked all directions. Everyone's faces turned pale with fright, and each of them revealed a strong sense of dread. Was this the power of a profound world realm expert? It was indeed not something a void-piercing realm expert could compare to. Countless stones of different sizes were pulled into the sky by the huge force. The magnificent scene was like a meteorite plane in the universe. The monstrous beasts below stared at the scene in front of them like tigers watching their prey. It had to be said that the aura emitted by these human martial cultivators caused them to feel fear and respect. The monstrous beasts, who were not low in intelligence, did not dare to rashly attack. Rumble. The aura was like thunder, and it was deafening. In just a few seconds, all the stones produced by the collapse of the ancient tower in the west were swept into the sky by the gray nebula whirlpool. Among them were many smashed bookshelves, cabinets, books, and scrolls. They floated majestically between the heavens and the earth, looking like a swarm of pitch-black insects. While shocked by Chi Lianchong's powerful strength, everyone's eyes were looking for traces of the heaven and earth mystic yellow order in the ruins. They were all eager to find something. This works." The man from the Fong clan smiled evilly and waved the death scythe in his hand. Chi Lianchong's eyes flashed with a poisonous light, and his contemptuous gaze fell on Chu Hen again. "I have never liked people who lie, especially to me." His calm tone was full of coldness. The people of Mount Kunliu could not help but clench their fists, ready to fight at any time. Without waiting for Chu Hen to reply, the man from the Fong clan smiled and said, the one from the Heavenly Serpent clan? In my opinion, the heaven and earth mystic yellow order is with someone. Instead of looking for them one by one, it is better to kill them all, and then we can fight for it with our own strength. What do you think?" Hearing this, the faces of the people around them turned pale. This man from the Fong clan was really a wild beast. Chi Lianchong smiled cruelly, revealing 2 sharp teeth at the corner of his mouth. He replied in a frivolous tone, "In that case, let's start with these people." A formless, oppressive killing intent surged towards Chu Hen and the people of Mount Kunliu behind him. Everyone's pupils trembled slightly. The worst thing had happened after all. Facing 2 experts of the Earth profound realm at the same time was definitely troublesome. "You can wake up now, all of you," Chi Lianchong shouted and stretched out his arms. His whole body erupted with a mountain-moving momentum. In the next instant, the countless pieces of rubble floating in the air whistled towards Chu Hen and the others like a storm. Rumble. The sky lost its color, and the tides surged. The endless rubble all rushed over, and the scene was like a mudslide that broke through a dam. It covered the sky and the earth, as if it was going to bury everyone. At the same time, the man from the Fong clan let out a sharp, eerie laugh. He dragged the death scythe and rushed out with a mighty momentum. "Get ready to enjoy the pleasure of pain. I can't wait to taste the sweet blood of all of you." Under the cover of the dusky sky, The man from the Fang clan and Qi Liansheng from the Heavenly Serpent clan looked like demons from hell. However, there was not the slightest hint of fear on Chu Hen's face. With a flick of his palm, the limitless Fang appeared in his hand. He turned to Danjun behind him and said, "I'm afraid you're going to use your full strength, I know." Danjun's eyes turned cold, and her face was full of seriousness. "Give me half a cup of tea's time," Chu Hen said. "What?" Everyone was shocked and looked at each other in disbelief. "You just need to stall that reptile for half a cup of tea's time. I can kill this savage in half a cup of tea's time." Every word was sonorous and forceful. The people of Mount Kunliu felt as if their hearts had been hit by a heavy object. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen turned into a stream of light and dashed out. His blade was like a shadow, and the oncoming boulders were all turned into powder. As he moved at high speed, a strong purple light burst out of Chu Hen's body. At the same time, his pitch-black pupils quietly turned into a demonic purple. Kill. Boom! In the next second, Chu Hen and the man from the Fang clan were like two meteors flying in from the sky, unexpectedly meeting each other in the void. Intense waves of true yuan soared into the sky. Light patterns that blended purple and gray spread out in all directions. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the man from the Fang clan, who was known for his savagery and tyranny, was shaken and forced to retreat. What? The man from the Fang clan held the handle of the scythe of the god of death with both hands. Gray light rose around his body, and he glided in the void for nearly 100 meters before he could stabilize his body. Hee, this is interesting. I hope you can still laugh in a while. As soon as the cold voice fell, a dazzling silver light drew a beautiful arc in the sky. Chu Hen instantly circled behind the man, dragging his blade with both hands. The limitless Fang, which was swallowing purple and black light, tore through the air and slashed at the back of the man from the Fang clan. Chapter 658. A series of blood splattered in the sky. In an instant, a bone-deep wound appeared on the back of the man from the Fang clan. Everyone present was completely shocked. Their faces were filled with disbelief. In just 2 moves, Chu Hen, who was at the 9th rank of the void-piercing realm, was able to injure the man from the Fang clan, who was at the profound world realm. Whether it was in terms of speed or explosive power, it was very surprising. Boom! At the same time, the horrifying attack of the ruins, which was like a mudslide, immediately collided with the people from Mount Kunliu. "You guys back off first." Danjun's body erupted with a surging golden true yuan. The mighty true yuan formed a solid light shield, blocking him and the people behind him. "Senior brother Danjun, you?" Su Lang, Fu Qin, and the others were shocked. From Danjun's tone, it seemed that he wanted to deal with Qi Liansheng from the Sky Serpent clan alone. "We don't only have 2 enemies. Preserve your strength in case we need it." After saying that, Danjun glanced at Chu Hen from the corner of his eyes. He raised the corner of his mouth and said in a deep voice, "I am the number 1 person in the Flying Immortal Palace. How can I fall behind you?" Buzz, buzz. A dozen or so dazzling golden light patterns extended from Danjun's arms to his palms like spiritual vines. Then he put his palms together, and with a violent rhythm, a burst of dazzling light leaked out. A bird shining with holy light flew out. In the process of moving, the bird shone brightly and rapidly expanded. In an instant, it turned into a golden falcon that was 100 meters wide. Screech! The falcon was like a sharp blade, piercing through the rubble, flying in the sky. Wherever it went, it cut through the wind and waves, slashing towards Qi Liansheng from the Sky Serpent clan. And not bad. An evil smile appeared on Qi Liansheng's face as he spread his arms apart. A monstrous aura swept out in all directions along with the gray light that intertwined with each other. After that, the dragon around him soared into the sky and emanated a terrifying aura like that of a ferocious beast. The gigantic snake shadow was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. It swooped down and collided head-on with the golden falcon. Boom! The dazzling light was like the sun in the sky, and the chaotic true elemental energy wantonly splashed in the sky. A violent tremor comparable to the collision of mountains erupted in the sky above the ancient city. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot out, and a vast airwave swept in all directions. The surrounding people retreated one after another, and many of the demonic beasts who did not manage to retreat in time were sent flying. There were even many demonic beasts whose internal organs were ruptured on the spot, and they died on the spot. In the first round, Danjun was not at a disadvantage in front of Qi Liancheng, who was in the profound world realm. These people seemed to be the disciples of Mount Kunliu. Among the crowd of human wuxiu, someone quickly recognized the identity of Danjun and her group. Those who had the ability to come here were not ordinary people. Even though the Liao clan man and Qi Liancheng were powerful, they did not immediately flee in fear, adapt to the situation, and act according to the circumstances. This was what everyone was thinking. After all, in such a chaotic situation, anything could happen. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. Since everyone had come for the heaven and earth mystic yellow token, how could they leave so easily? As far as I know, there are two disciples of Mount Kunliu with decent cultivation. One is Nangong Hao the Demon Slayer Hall, and the other is Lung Lingyan of the Void Hall. Who is that person? While the surrounding people retreated, most of their attention was still focused on Chu Hen, who was fighting fiercely with the Liao clan man. Bang! A powerful aura continuously rose from within Chu Hen's body. Shaking light flickered, and in the air, bright arcs of light were drawn one after another. Like a ghost, Chu Hen passed through the surroundings of the Fong clansman. The fangs of Limitless, which were covered in purple and black light, danced in the wind, creating layers of beautiful light and shadows. In the blink of an eye, 5 or 6 wounds appeared on the body of the Liao clan man. Moreover, each wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Even so, the Liao clan man did not even frown, as if he did not feel any pain. It was so strange that it was terrifying. Hee, the feeling of pain is really memorable. The ear-piercing laughter made people's scalps go numb. This Liao clan man was like a vicious tiger, a beast in human skin. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been scared a long time ago and would not have dared to fight against him. Whoosh! In the next instant, he raised the death god scythe in his hand and slashed horizontally at Chu Hen's chest. The scythe was extremely sharp, comparable to a divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud, and it emitted a cold aura of death. Be careful, hee. The crisp, sharp weapons produced waves of metallic vibrations in the air, dragging out a string of dazzling light and shadows. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and a purple light flashed. Facing this life-threatening scythe attack, he did not dodge, and instead rushed forward. Swoosh! When the sharp scythe was about to cut horizontally, Chu Hen suddenly bent his body and dived down. While dodging the opponent's attack, he dashed out from the side of the opponent's right knee, dashing to the back of the Liao clan man with the agility of a cheetah. Immediately after, the true Yuan covering Chu Hen's body released an obscure rhythm. In an instant, a condensed black sword shadow appeared in front of Chu Hen. Whoosh! The fierce black sword shadow flew out like an aurora, rolling up an astonishing murderous aura, and chopped at the back ankle of the man from the Liao clan. Hiss, blood splashed, and the flesh was torn. The tendon of the Liao clan man's right leg was directly cut off by this sword energy. What? Boom! Everyone who witnessed this scene was greatly shocked. They were all impressed by Chu Hen's combat power and his skill in fighting against those at a higher level. Beautiful! Su Lang, Ling Tao, Qi Tung, and the others on Mount Kunliu all secretly applauded. They had to admit that this strike was really beautiful. After the tendon of his right leg was cut off, the Liao clan man's face finally changed a little bit. But it was just a little bit. He was still grinning ferociously, so fierce that people would think he was an unkillable species. You do have some skills, but suddenly, a powerful blood-red light surged out from the body of the man from the Fong clan. His eyes were like a wild wolf in the forest, piercing Chu Hen's face. He sternly shouted, "This level of power has no effect on me at all." Roar. A beast-like roar came from the throat of the Fong clan man. In the next second, all the wounds on his body emitted a dazzling red light. Chilly wind rose, chilling to the bone. Then, under the shocked gazes of the audience, all the wounds on the Liao clan man's body were healing rapidly. Chapter 659. This level of power has no effect on me at all. Along with the beast-like roar, the Fong clan man's body exploded with a dazzling, demonic, bloody light. Then, under the shocked gazes of everyone present, all the wounds on his body healed rapidly, including the leg tendon that Chu Hen had cut off. The bleeding stopped in an instant and turned into long, narrow scars. Hee. The Fong clan man held the death scythe in his hand. His aura was monstrous, and an overwhelming, cold aura spread out in all directions from his body. How is this possible? Is this guy really unkillable? On Mount Kunliu, Hua Shui, Qi Teng, and the others all frowned. Their faces were filled with intense shock. Su Lang said in a deep voice, "This is the self-healing ability of the Grizzly bloodline's boundary. The members of the Grizzly clan have extremely strong physical strength. Aside from their shocking attack power, their defensive power is not to be underestimated. Their recovery ability, especially, can quickly recover no matter how serious their injuries are." After listening to Su Lang's explanation, their expressions changed again and again. "How are we supposed to fight? How are we supposed to lose?" Hua Shui exclaimed. Su Lang sighed and shook his head helplessly. It was indeed too difficult. For Chu Hen to be able to do this, it was enough to make people have a whole new level of respect for him. Unless Danjun was able to spare some effort, but this was clearly not very possible. Danjun was also under great pressure from Qi Lianchong of the Heavenly Serpent clan, let alone Chu Hen's side. Moreover, Chu Hen's claim that he could kill the Fong clan man in half a cup of tea's time was even more impossible. Of course, no one dared to laugh at Chu Hen. It was not that he was too weak, but the Fong clan man was too difficult to deal with. "Be ready to fight at any time," Su Lang said solemnly. Although Danjun had asked them to preserve their strength to deal with other unexpected situations, they could not just stand by and watch if Chu Hen and Danjun were in danger. The sky was dark, and the ground was dark. The demonic beasts in the surrounding area were still fighting each other, and there were already quite a number of demonic beasts that were ready to attack the human cultivators in the vicinity. Fierce battles of all sizes were taking place in this area. The Fong clan man was pointing his scythe at Chu Hen. His red mouth seemed to be dyed with blood. "Oomph." Chu Hen sneered disdainfully. "If we're talking about bloodlines, I can make you kneel on the ground and not get up, Xiao." Before his voice faded, Chu Hen disappeared from where he was again. In a blink of an eye, he dashed to the area above the Liao clan man and slashed down with the power to split open the sky with the surging black light of Sun Luo Fong. Azura slash. Wow. There seemed to be the roar of ghosts and monsters in the world. A cluster of blood-colored illusions that covered the sky and covered the earth suddenly appeared behind Chu Hen. Dense killing intent poured down, and a black blade light that was 100 feet wide directly slashed towards the man from the Liao clan below. The might of the mountains, the power of the seas, it was unstoppable. The Liao clan man's pupils shrank. He raised his scythe of the god of death and clashed head-on with the sky-cleaving blade. Bang! The giant blade light shook the sky, its momentum like a rainbow. A monstrous wave that blotted out the sky and covered the earth spread out in all directions. The terrifying impact pressed down all the way, and the man from the Liao clan was directly slashed to the ground by the saber radiance, as if he had been hit by the power of gods and demons. Boom! Rumble! A deafening sound exploded between the heavens and the earth. 1,000-foot-long saber light fell to the ground, setting off a massive wave of true essence that soared into the sky. Rocks flew everywhere, dirt splashed everywhere, and a giant ravine immediately spread across the ground. The mountains collapsed, and the earth cracked. A thick layer of soil was directly cut off. in the area directly in front of the blade. Many of the demonic beasts that couldn't dodge in time were forcibly chopped into pieces by the terrifying residual power. What a domineering blade power! The fierce airflow mixed with dust, and smoke rushed over. The human Wuxian nearby secretly clicked his tongue, full of shock. Ha ha ha! I was almost killed. In the rubble, an ear-piercing, strange laughter came out. What? Everyone's heart trembled again. The eyes of the people from Mount Kunliu were also filled with shock. Could this guy really recover immediately, no matter how serious his injuries were? Under the dust and sand, a disheveled figure climbed up from the rubble unhurriedly. Under his chest, there was a slanted wound that cut across half of his body. Through the bloody wound, one could vaguely see the white ribs and scarlet internal organs. However, it was precisely this wound that was fatal to ordinary people that was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was a truly frightening sight. But then, the space around the Liao clan man suddenly fell into a strange state of distortion. Boom! Together with an extremely cold aura, a monstrous purple flame erupted out of nowhere, surrounding the Liao clan man in the middle. This is? Hua Shui and the others who were playing the zither trembled slightly. They looked up and saw a gorgeous purple light lingering around Chu Hen's body. His handsome side profile looked especially demonic. Buzz. The powerful demonic flame shot up into the sky and gathered towards the Liao clan man in the middle. In an instant, it engulfed him. The incomparably domineering demonic flame would not stop until it burned its target to ashes. The terrifying flame spread out in all directions, directly turning a large area below into a sea of fire. Some of the demonic beasts that were relatively close were touched by the purple flame and immediately turned into ashes amidst their shrill cries. Hiss! Wuxian, who saw this scene, could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This purple flame was even more domineering. Even Shi Liansheng of the Heavenly Serpent clan, who was fighting fiercely with Shan Zhen, could not help but narrow his eyes. His cold face surged with traces of coldness. Boom! Suddenly, a huge red mist of blood surged into the sky. The majestic power was like a huge mushroom cloud. The earth-shattering ferocious power shocked in all directions. Everyone suddenly had the illusion that a beast had awakened. Piercingly cold wind attacked this piece of land. Endless purple flame suddenly burst out from middle. Then, the Liao clan man, whose entire body was covered in demonic flame, once again appeared in everyone's sight. Now my turn, isn't it? Crack! Like the sound of bones rubbing against each other, the Liao clan man's body began to rapidly expand. 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, chaotic air currents spread in all directions. A terrifying pressure constantly burst out from the Liao clan man's body. Under the crowd's horrified gazes, the Liao clan man's body immediately grew to 100 meters tall. The cold aura gave people a feeling of endless danger. The Liao clan man was like an awakened ancient giant. His ferocious power shook the sky and the galaxy. The death god scythe in his hand also grew to 100 meters long. It was a divine weapon, emitting the power to split the sky and the earth. A good show is about to begin. Hee. The Liao clan man waved his hand. The light and shadow of the scythe directly split the purple flame under him into two. Then he leaped up, flew into the void, and raised the huge weapon to slash at Chu Hen. Bang! The death god scythe that was 100 meters long and the omniscient Fong that was less than 2 meters long collided, sending out thousands of sparks. Beautiful true inner force bloomed. While Chu Hen was pushed back, he dodged sideways, turning into a beam of light and dashing toward his opponent. In front of the Liao clan man, Chu Hen was as small as a moth. With ferocious eyes, he looked at Chu Hen, who was dashing toward him, his face revealing an excited and creepy smile. Swallow the world. Boom. The unstoppable momentum stirred up the sky and earth. Giant waves rose up to the sky. In a split second, the Liao clan man opened his giant mouth. Then, An enormous swallowing force shrouded the space where Chu Hen was. Boom! Wind and thunder roared, shaking the earth and sky. The space in the Liao clan man's giant mouth twisted, forming a twisted vortex. The vortex was dozens of meters wide and pitch black, like a black hole in the vast universe. The violent airflow tore at Chu Hen's body, as if an invisible hand was forcefully pulling him into the Liao clan man's mouth. Not good. The faces of the people on Mount Konglu changed dramatically. Su Lang shouted in a deep voice, "We can't let him swallow us. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble." Without saying another word, the few of them immediately flew up, intending to rescue Chu Hen. However, the Liao clan man's eyes were full of disdain. With a wave of his hand, the death god's scythe drew a beam of light across the sky toward the crowd. Bang! Waves of air rolled, and true inner force piled up. Everyone was sent flying by the shockwave. Buzz! Chapter 660. World Devourer, the man from the Fong clan who had unleashed his full strength, transformed into a 300-foot-tall giant. An unstoppable, devouring force was released from his giant mouth. Air billowed and space distorted. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Chu Hen was directly dragged into the black vortex in the man's mouth by the irresistible, devouring force. Hee. The man from the Fong clan closed his giant mouth, and the black vortex in his mouth immediately closed. His 300-foot-tall body stood between heaven and earth with the death god's scythe in his hand like a terrifying evil god. In an instant, the expressions of the people from Mount Konglu changed drastically. All of them were furious. Chu Hen. Hua Shui could not help but exclaim, "Senior brother Su Lang, hurry up and save him." However, Su Lang frowned and shook his head helplessly. "It's useless. The belly of a Fong clan member is like hell. Once he's swallowed, the power of the grisly bloodline will increase tenfold." What? Everyone's faces turned pale again. Tenfold? In other words, Chu Hen was currently enduring the suppression of the grisly bloodline that had been strengthened tenfold. He could not escape it all. What awaited him was death in the Fong clan's belly. As the saying went, the Fong clan's belly was like hell. This was also the reason why people were so afraid of the Fong clan. While everyone was panicking, Danjun was also having a hard time. "He's actually a little faster than me." Qi Lianchong from the Heaven Serpent clan sneered. "Thousand Snake, rending hand." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold and dangerous aura suddenly spread out from Qi Lianchong's body. Gray light surged as his arms stretched toward Danjun in front of him. Hiss! Hiss! Accompanied by a scalp-numbing snake hissing sound, the color of Qi Lianchong's arms quickly darkened, and in an instant, they transformed into hundreds and thousands of ferocious poisonous pythons. The densely packed venomous pythons seemed to grow out of Qi Lianchong's arms. They extended endlessly and were incredibly fast. Like dense seaweed, they attacked Danjun from the front and the left and right. Whoosh! It was bone-piercingly cold. Danjun's expression changed. A dazzling golden light immediately burst out of his body. Illusion golden body. Instantly, Danjun's entire body seemed as if it was cast from gold. Every single inch of his skin flickered with a golden glow, and it seemed as if he'd been bathed in the divine radiance of the sun. Bang! With a punch, the golden arm directly smashed several poisonous pythons into pieces. The illusory golden body was the top body refinement technique of the Flying Immortal Hall. When it was executed, one's entire body would be as hard as bronze, and it could be said to be indestructible. However, although Danjun's attack was powerful, the number of poisonous pythons released by Qi Lianchong was like the roots of a 1,000-year-old tree. Swish, swish, the scattered poisonous pythons quickly wrapped themselves around Danjun's limbs, waist, and neck. In the blink of an eye, her movements were restricted. This. In the next second, all the ferocious poisonous pythons opened their mouths and bit at Danjun's major arteries. Buzz, buzz. Danjun's eyes turned cold, and a thin layer of golden powder-like halo flowed out from her body. This halo formed a defensive layer that blocked the venomous snake's fangs. Even so, Dan Jun was firmly entangled, and she was almost unable to move. Senior brother Dan Jun. Witnessing this scene, the people from Mount Kunliu felt that the situation was far from good. Without hesitation, Su Lang and Ling Tao flew out and pulled out their swords to rescue Dan Jun. Hee hee, two idiots who are not afraid of death have come. Qi Liancheng sneered disdainfully. Then, two poisonous pythons separated from the group of snakes that had entangled Dan Jun and pounced at Su Lang and Ling Tao. As they moved, the bodies of the two poisonous pythons rapidly expanded, and they immediately turned into giant pythons that were hundreds of meters long, emitting a thick and terrifying aura. Boom! Bang! Su Lang and Ling Tao, who were caught off guard, were swept by the two giant pythons' gigantic bodies. As the intense shock waves spread out in the sky, the two of them felt as though they had been struck by a mountain. Their bodies shook violently as they were sent flying backwards. Seeing this situation, the people from Mount Kunliu were at a loss. Chu Hen was swallowed by the man from the Fong clan, and Dan Jun was trapped by the group of poisonous snakes. This was equivalent to a devastating blow. Kiki, the man from the Fong clan, had a shocking aura, and every move he made was like a terrifying beast. He raised the death god's scythe in his hand, and a ferocious light flashed in his huge eyes. He glanced at the people from Mount Kunliu and the other human wuxio nearby. It's your turn now, hee. Everyone's expression changed. The human wuxio, who were prepared to act according to the situation and fish in troubled waters, no longer hesitated. They all turned into streams of light, turned around, and fled. After all, the man from the Fong clan and Qi Liancheng from the Heavenly Serpent clan were planning to kill them all. Kiki, if you want to run, you'll have to ask the death god's scythe in my hand. After saying that, the man from the Fong clan waved his hand, and the giant scythe that was hundreds of meters long tore through the sky, creating a crescent moon shadow that was hundreds of meters long. The crescent moon shadow was like a flying shuttle, and it slashed down with great momentum. Wherever it went, the demonic beasts that were in its way were all cut in half. And the few human wuxio who had just turned around and fled were also cut into pieces. Blood rained in the sky, and broken limbs flew in the air. Everyone was terrified, and a chill ran down their spines. Kiki, the man from the Fong clan, was very excited, and he especially enjoyed this kind of killing. No one can escape. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the expression of the man from the Fong clan changed abruptly. Then a restless feeling of restlessness, like the undercurrent of the deep sea, kept increasing in his body. What was going on? Everyone was shocked. Before they could react, a sharp golden sword Qi suddenly pierced through the abdomen of the man from the Fong clan. What? Everyone was shocked, especially the people from Mount Kunliu, whose eyes were wide open. Could it be this? Qi. Then, one after another, brilliant sword radiance directly pierced through the huge body of the man from the Fong clan. The powerful sword radiance was like the radiance of the holy light, bursting out one after another. In an instant, the body of the man from the Fong clan was riddled with thousands of holes. An angry roar came from the mouth of the man from the Fong clan. His whole body trembled, and he held his abdomen with one hand. He shouted sternly, "Get out of here. You want to swallow me? Aren't you afraid of bursting?" With a frivolous sneer, countless dazzling sword radiance pierced through the body of the man from different angles. Even the giant hand that was holding his abdomen was pierced by a few powerful sword radiances. In an instant, the man from the Fong clan looked like a shining giant. Furthermore, every beam of light that was unleashed would severely injure his body from the inside out. It's the flying immortal technique. Chu Hen is fine. Chu Hen is fine. Hua Shui was so excited that she clapped her hands happily. Fu Qin, Ji Shu, Qi Teng, and Su Lang and Ling Tao on the other side were also extremely shocked. How could it be? One had to know that once swallowed, the power of the Fong Xian body would be suppressed by 10 times the bloodline strength. The person inside would be like falling into a quagmire. He probably wouldn't even be able to move, not to mention being able to burst out such a powerful lethality. There was only one situation that could happen. The boundary power of Chu Hen's bloodline was far stronger than the Feng Xian bloodline. Even if the latter was 10 times stronger, it could not suppress the former. The more they thought about it, the more terrifying it was. Deep disbelief surged in everyone's hearts. If that was the case, what kind of physique did Chu Hen have? Just like what Chu Hen had said before, in terms of the boundary power of the bloodline, he could make the man kneel on the ground and not get up. Boom! A deafening sound exploded between heaven and earth, accompanied by a furious roar. The huge body of the man from the Fang clan looked like it was about to explode. Endless sword radiance bloomed from his body like the sun, overshadowing the world. Chapter 661. Get out of here. The giant man's 100-meter-tall body trembled violently, emitting a furious, majestic, and ferocious aura. Tens of thousands of sword lights pierced through his abdomen like divine rays and bloomed like the sun and stars. Strong winds blew, and dark clouds roared in the sky. Although the giant man's physical strength was astonishing, he could not withstand the impact from the inside out. In the next instant, an unprecedented, terrifying aura burst out from the giant man's body. Get out! The thunderous roar caused heaven and earth to faintly tremble. Then, with an explosive bang, flesh and blood splattered everywhere, and red rain drifted everywhere. A bloody hole that was more than 10 meters wide was blasted open in the giant's abdomen. His intestines were pierced through, and minced meat flew everywhere. Under the gazes of the surrounding people that were filled with endless shock, a young figure that was surrounded by a sharp sword aura flew out. What? Watching this scene, all the human wuxio present could not help but clench his fists. No one dared to look at such a cruel and bloody scene. Looking at Chu Hen, who was unscathed and showed his unparalleled sharpness, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. He was probably the first person who could escape unscathed after being swallowed by the giant man of the Fang clan. Roar! You deserve to die. You really deserve to die. The infuriated giant man's face twisted in anger. His entire body emitted a bloody light, and the bloody hole in his abdomen shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. The other wounds on his body that were pierced by the sword energy also healed. Although his intestines were pierced, the giant man's aura was still so furious that it made people feel fear. I'm going to tear you into 1,000 pieces, you hateful thing. The giant man's eyes were filled with ferocious viciousness. Without waiting for his wounds to fully recover, he directly raised the giant scythe of the god of death and slashed at Chu Hen. Facing the mountain-like giant man of the Fang clan, Chu Hen stood proudly in the air. His clothes fluttered in the strong air waves, and a demonic purple light enveloped his body, emitting a transcendent and domineering aura. Boom! Without waiting for the opponent's giant sickle to slash down, a wave of purple flames that was comparable to a volcanic tsunami suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's body. In the next second, an incomparably huge, demonic flame dragon shadow flew out. Silent burning demon flame. Annihilation. Roar. Its ferocious might shook the heavens and caused the sky to lose its color. Everyone's faces were dyed purple. The giant purple flaming dragon was like an ancient beast that had just woken up from its slumber. It dashed towards the massive scythe of the man of the Liao clan. Boom! A terrifying shockwave comparable to a mountain torrent immediately swept across the sky above the wind's soaring origin. The vast and terrifying energy was like a huge fireball exploding from it, and a circle of gorgeous purple light swept out in all directions. The entire sky above the ruins of the ancient city fell into a state of distortion. Icy gales whipped up monstrous waves that surged toward the giant of the Fang clan. Bang! The man from the Liao clan felt as if he had been hit by a meteor. Along with the wildly spreading purple demonic flames, his huge body, which was more than 1,000 feet tall, was sent flying backward. Mouthfuls of blood gushed out of his mouth. The wounds on his body that hadn't completely healed were burnt black by the demonic flames. The tremendous momentum pressed down, and the man from the Liao clan shrank rapidly. 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters, 30 meters. In the blink of an eye, he returned to his normal size. The pace of the battle between the two was extremely fast. In the distance, many human beings, Wu Xiao, were all dumbfounded and couldn't recover from the shock for a while. While flying backward, the wounds on the man from the Liao clan began to heal. He grinned viciously. His scarlet lips and white teeth looked ferocious. Tut, you can't kill me. Just give up. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a hurried sound of breaking wind came directly. Chu Hen instantly left his spot and chased after the man from the Liao clan like an arrow released from a bow. It's been 5 minutes. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with purple light. His throat moved slightly, and he shouted coldly, "Because of what I said before, today Chu Hen, will take your life. Take it." These cold and heartless words caused everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Buzz! Buzz! In the next instant, the sword chi outside of Chu Hen's body quickly condensed into a solid black sword light in front of him. Swoosh! The sharp sword light flew out and split into 4, turning into 4 solid sword shadows that slashed at the 4 limbs of the Liao clan man. The sword energy tore through the air, and the sword energy was shocking. The pupils of the man from the Liao clan shrank violently. Without any time to dodge, the 4 sword shadows directly pierced through his limbs. Hiss! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through flesh pierced everyone's eardrums. Everyone's pupils violently shrank. In an instant, the entire space seemed to slow down. A burst of blood splattered in the air. The hands and feet of the man from the Liao clan actually flew off and were cut off by Chu Hen on the spot. Having lost his limbs, the man from the Liao clan looked even more ferocious and terrifying. His right hand that had been cut off was still holding the death scythe. However, right after that, Chu Hen moved and reached out to catch the death scythe that had been thrown away. Raising the scythe high in the air, he immediately appeared in front of the man from the Liao clan. His cold purple eyes were full of disdain and frivolity. "Farewell, I won't be sending you off." Whoosh! The light was so bright that it hurt the eyes. Endless fear filled the face of the man from the Liao clan. No! Hiss! Blood splattered as the sharp scythe drew a beautiful arc of light in the air. Then a round head flew out. A strong, murderous aura burst out from Chu Hen's body. He once again raised the death scythe and swung it down. The torso that had lost its limbs and head was once again cut into 2 halves. Blood and broken internal organs flew everywhere. The bloody and cruel scene impacted everyone's visual nerves. At this moment, the so-called unkillable species was completely torn apart by Chu Hen and died without a whole corpse. Shock. Absolute shock. Everyone present was trembling with fear. At this moment, Chu Hen, who was holding the death scythe, was more like the god of death from the 9 serenities of hell. Even the countless demonic beasts in the distance were so frightened that they prostrated on the ground, letting out low growls. The people from Mount Konglu were also dumbfounded. Each of them stood rooted to the ground, unable to recover from their shock. This was too cruel. Indeed, in just half a cup of tea's time, Chu Hen had killed an expert at the profound world realm. This was a heaven-defying pace. Screech! At the same time, a loud and clear eagle's cry came. A pair of dazzling shadow wings flew across the sky, like a flying shuttle that had traveled thousands of years, directly rushing towards Dan Zhen's direction. Hiss! A dazzling aurora flew past. In the next moment, the group of poisonous pythons that had entangled Dan Zhen were all cut into several pieces. The golden wings circled back and transformed into a majestic golden-clawed heavenly eagle. Bang! Following that, Dan Zhen's body shone with a golden light, and the broken parts of the pythons that had entangled her body were directly shattered into pieces. Dan Zhen had also escaped. The people from Mount Konglu were extremely excited. Everyone's gaze involuntarily gathered on Qi Liansheng of the Heavenly Serpent clan. This was a shocking reversal. With the death of the man from the Liao clan, Qi Liansheng was already in a dangerous situation. Buzz! However, in the same second that Danjun broke free, Qi Liancheng's body suddenly erupted with a majestic momentum that was like a tsunami and a landslide. A bone-chilling cold wind swept across the land, and the sky was shrouded in a gray light. The corner of Qi Liancheng's mouth rose into a cold and cruel arc, and his eyes suddenly turned vertical snake eyes. Thank you for getting rid of that barbarian for me. As a token of my gratitude, I'll send you on your way. Not good. The faces of the people from Mount Conlu paled. The person that Qi Liancheng was really targeting was Chu Hen. Buzz. The entire sky seemed to be shaking uneasily, and a vast amount of gray light gathered together. In an instant, in the sky above Qi Liancheng, a ferocious shadow of a sky-devouring python suddenly appeared. The sky darkened, and an unshakable and terrifying pressure enveloped the entire sky. The body of the heaven-devouring python was like a mountain. It was like a coiling dragon as it floated in the sky. Its pair of ice-cold pupils looked down at Chu Hen, who was in front of it. A dense, dangerous aura wantonly swept downwards. Chapter 662. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Cold laughter echoed from Qi Liancheng's mouth. Endless chilling aura filled the sky, instantly enveloping the entire heavenly domain. The sky darkened, and the sky lost its color. Looking at the ferocious, sky-devouring giant python in the sky behind Qi Liancheng, everyone present felt a mountain-like pressure. The sky-devouring giant python was as large as a mountain, like a ferocious coiling dragon. Its cold vertical pupils stared indifferently at Chu Hen, as if it was looking at a dead man. At this moment, everyone suddenly understood Qi Liancheng's intentions. Chu Hen killed a Feng expert, so what Qi Liancheng wanted to do was to kill Chu Hen. To him, as long as he got rid of Chu Hen, Danjun, Su Lang, Fu Qin, and the others were nothing to worry about. Without any hesitation, Qi Liancheng directly brewed this ultimate move. Rumble. Waves of wind and lightning surged out. In an instant, the sky-devouring giant python, which was comparable to an ancient divine beast, swooped down like a shocking rainbow towards Chu Hen. The terrifying pressure was like a raging wave, like a tsunami, shaking the heavens and the earth and shaking the nine heavens. Everywhere the python phantom passed, space would distort. The expressions of everyone on Mount Kunliu changed. No one could stop it. However, at this critical moment, a monstrous and majestic aura rose in the other side of the sky without any warning. Accompanied by the galloping momentum of a magnificent army, thousands of dazzling golden rays surged towards them like a blooming sun. What's that? Everyone present was shocked. In an instant, within the surging golden light, the shadow of a giant rat that was hundreds of meters long actually appeared. It was a huge creature that looked like a weasel, but its fur was bright gold. In its slightly open mouth, two large incisors as sharp as guillotines could be seen. Compared to the usual gloomy and weak feeling that rats gave off, this giant rat was completely different. It gave off the feeling that it was emitting a shocking aura. Rumble. He didn't give any time to think, and he didn't give anyone a chance to recover. The giant rat swept up a mighty and terrifying wave of power and collided with the sky-devouring giant python under everyone's surprised gazes. Bang! The gray giant python, the golden heavenly rat. As soon as the two collided, an earth-shattering collision erupted. The surroundings shook, and the heavens and the earth fell into chaos. Countless dazzling markings of light filled the sky as the aftermath of an enormous mushroom cloud that was a mixture of gold and gray shot into the sky, and it almost pierced a hole in the sky. What's going on? Who's coming? This sudden scene caused everyone to be extremely astonished. Even Chu Hen was taken aback, feeling very surprised. Rumble. Layers upon layers of shock waves spread out in all directions like ripples on the surface of water, stirring up chaotic airflows and strong winds within a radius of tens of miles. Wu Xiao and countless demonic beasts retreated. Chu Hen and Qi Liancheng, who were closest to the area where the two forces collided, also flew back quickly. Damn it. Qi Lianchong's face darkened, and his vertical snake eyes flashed with a strong sense of coldness. There was no second chance after the first attack failed. If he wanted to kill Chu Hen again, it was almost impossible, especially the mysterious person who suddenly appeared. He was definitely an expert in the profound world realm. The situation was hopeless. There was no hope of a comeback. Immediately, Qi Lianchong's eyes flashed coldly, and he shouted in a deep voice, "The Heavenly Serpent Clan will remember what happened today. We will settle this debt in the future." After saying this, Qi Lianchong's body moved, turned into a wisp of gray light, and flew away. In an instant, he was several miles away. Chu Hen had no intention of chasing after him. Instead, he, along with the others, stared at the sky that was glowing with golden light. Who is it? Why is he helping me? Buzz, buzz. Immediately, the surging golden light quickly converged like a whale sucking in water. In the golden light, a young figure with a gentle temperament gradually appeared in everyone's line of sight. The person looked at Chu Hen, and a hearty smile appeared on his face. "Chu Hen, long time no see." A familiar voice came from the person's mouth. Chu Hen raised his eyebrows, and his eyes revealed a strong light of surprise. He subconsciously shouted, "Senior brother Howsy." Howsy, the first friend that Chu Hen made when he left Burning Rain City and went to the Imperial City to participate in the Marshall House assessment. Previously, Howsy was in the Bright Moon Academy, and later, because of his relationship with Chu Hen, he entered the Tensei Prefecture. However, the other party did not stay in the Tensei Prefecture for a few days. When he went out to train, he accidentally met the famous thief of the 100 Kingdoms province, Thief Rat Godly. Thief Rat Godly discovered at a glance that Howsy had the same bloodline boundary as the other party. Thief Rat. It was abbreviated as Heavenly Ratxian Body. Under the persuasion of Thief Rat Godly, Howsy finally decided to leave with the other party. However, after he left that year, there was no news of Howsy. He thought that it would be difficult to meet him again in this life, but he never thought that today he would meet Howsy here, and on such an occasion. "Haha, it seems that you still remember me." Howsy grinned, and his pair of small eyes still gave people a kind feeling. Then, Howsy's figure moved, and together with Chu Hen, they flashed down from the sky. "What are you talking about? How could I, Chu Hen, forget a friend?" Both of them were a little excited to meet an old friend in a foreign place. When they were in the Saint Star dynasty, Chu Hen treated Howsy as a brother. At that time, the three of them lived under the same roof with Mu Feng, and they even made a lot of jokes. "It's so good to see you." Howsy and Chu Hen shook hands. After a long time of separation, they were quite surprised. When Dan Jun, Su Lang, Fu Qin, and the other people of Mount Kunliu saw this, they could not help but let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that they were friends and not enemies. The guard in their hearts also quietly disappeared. As for the other human Wu Xiu nearby, they also looked at each other a few times and then quietly retreated. The purpose of those people was to take advantage of the chaos to see if they could benefit from it. However, the man of the Fong clan was dead, and Qi Lianchong of the Heavenly Serpent clan had escaped. Now that Chu Hen had such a strong helper, it was absolutely impossible for the others to compete for the Heaven and Earth Black Yellow token. Thus, leaving without a word was the best choice he could make. Then, the people of Mount Kunliu landed on the ground one after another. "Senior brother Howsy, these are my companions. These are the disciples of Mount Kunliu, and these two are our friend from the 100 Kingdoms state." Chu Hen introduced Chi Tong and Lu Chi separately. Howsy nodded politely and smiled. "Hello, my name is Zhou Hao. You can call me Howsy like Chu Hen does." "Hee, it's quite similar." Hua Shui smiled mischievously. "Haha, that's what everyone says." Howsy was not angry. After all, he was used to it since he was young. In his opinion, calling him by his nickname was more intimate than calling him by his name. They simply introduced themselves to each other and got to know each other. However, the surrounding area was still extremely chaotic. Many demonic beasts gathered around, eyeing them covetously. After all, Chu Hen and the others had many thousand beast fruits, which made them restless. This is not the place to talk. Let's leave first, Danjin said. Okay. Everyone nodded in agreement. Hua Shui pointed at the Grim Reaper scythe in Chu Hen's hand and said, "Why are you still keeping this? Throw it away." Chu Hen raised his eyebrows slightly. "You are so extravagant. This is a sage artifact after all. It's good to sell it for money." Everyone was stunned and couldn't help but look at the scythe a few more times. To be honest, this Grim Reaper scythe was quite domineering and sharp. It had a strong deterrent force in terms of combat power. As Chu Hen's cultivation grew stronger and stronger, the demonic Punisher Spear and the Limitless Tooth were gradually unable to satisfy his requirements. The W Star Soul Pearl and the Jade Ransword were both rather special and were not suitable to deal with ordinary battles. This Death God Scythe was quite suitable for Chu Hen. "Before I find a new weapon, I'll use it first." Hua Shui was even more speechless. She curled her lips and said, "I've never seen a bandit like you. Why didn't you take away that savage's storage equipment?" "That's right. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. I wonder if that savage had collected the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Order?" After that, Chu Hen turned around and looked for the broken limbs of the man from the Fong clan in the ruins ahead. Soon, he found an ancient-looking storage bracelet on one of the arms. Everyone gathered around expectantly. The man from the Fong clan was relatively strong. With his ability, he was qualified to compete for the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Order. Chu Hen's divine sense entered the bracelet to search. Everyone's heart was in their throats. They stared at each other silently. "What's in it?" Hua Shui was the first to ask impatiently. "More than 30 Wanshou fruits, more than 10 martial arts techniques, 3 weapons." Chu Hen listed them one by one as if he was reporting the dishes. "What else? Nothing else?" "Also," Chu Hen's voice paused for a moment before he dragged out his words. A hearty smile rose from the corner of his mouth as he said, "This," a bright white light flashed. A dark golden iron plate suddenly appeared in Chu Hen's hand. The plate was about the size of a palm. It was engraved with a fire cloud pattern. One side was engraved with the word order, and the other side was engraved with the word earth. Wow! In an instant, they felt comfortable both physically and mentally. "It's the Earth Order." Everyone was pleasantly surprised. Finally, they had some gains, and Chu Hen was even happier. He had obtained the Mystic Order in the Ancient Tower. Therefore, he had obtained 2 Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Orders today, together with the Wanshou fruits and the Sickle of Death. This trip to the Feng Xiang source was a fruitful one. After a while, the red-winged Black Hawk and the Shi Yin Evil Dragon spread their wings and flew quickly again. They gradually left the ruins of the ancient city behind. Without a doubt, everyone's mood was much more relaxed and joyful than when they were at the poisonous Dragon Lake. The reunion of Chu Hen and Haozi was also a pleasant surprise. The two of them sat opposite each other on the back of the Shi Yin Evil Dragon and chatted happily. "Senior brother Haozi, I haven't seen you for so many years. You've changed a lot," Chu Hen said with a smile. Haozi smiled. "You too. Where have you been all these years? Where's Senior Thief Rat?" "Master went to travel around the world half a year ago. After he left the Sacred Star Dynasty, I followed Master everywhere. He treated me like family. He collected all kinds of treasures for me to strengthen my bloodline. Until half a year ago, when I broke through to the profound world realm, he told me to go out on my own and not rely on him anymore." Haozi said slowly. He had already become the disciple of Thief Rat. When he talked about Thief Rat, his face was full of respect. One could imagine how much the Thief Rat godly thief had done for him over the past few years. Chu Hen nodded with a sigh. "You made the right decision to leave the Sacred Star Dynasty." Nobody knew that in the Sacred Star Dynasty, Haozi was regarded as trash. He was just like an errand boy in a high-ranked martial house. Who would have thought that the river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years? The current mouse had already become an existence that countless people in the 100 Nations province looked up to. In terms of realm, he had surpassed Chu Hen. Of course, realms were realms. The man from the Liao clan was also at the profound world realm, but he was killed by Chu Hen in less than 5 minutes. No matter what, Chu Hen was sincerely happy for Halsey to be able to have today's achievements. Senior Brother Halsey, are you also here to collect the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow orders? Yes. Rat nodded. After Master left, I wandered around. Later on, I heard the news of the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow order being released. Thus, I unintentionally came to the Eastern Victory region. I did not expect to meet you here. If that's the case, then come with us. As soon as he said this, the eyes of the people from Mount Kunliu lit up. The strength that Halsey displayed just now was not any weaker than Qi Lianchong from the Heavenly Serpent clan. If he joined them, the overall strength of the team would increase greatly. Halsey smiled and did not refuse. Then, the two talked about the past and old people of the Sacred Star dynasty. How is Mu Feng now? Halsey asked. Aside from Chu Hen, the person that Rat was most familiar with was Mu Feng. At that time, the two of them were a pair of clowns in the Heavenly Star Martial House. Every 2 or 3 days, they would cause trouble that made one not know whether to laugh or cry. What made Chu Hen speechless was when Mu Feng encouraged Halsey to steal the underwear of female students. Whenever he thought of that idiot, he would laugh for a long time. However, Chu Hen sighed and said, something happened in the Heavenly Sword Pavilion where Mu Feng was. What happened? Seeing that his expression was not right, Halsey frowned slightly. It's a long story. I'll tell you alone in the future when I have the chance. Chu Hen did not want to spoil everyone's mood at this time. After all, today was a happy day. Moreover, the others did not know Mu Feng. It was fine to talk to Halsey alone in the future. Halsey nodded and did not ask any more questions. Oh yes, Chu Hen. Halsey suddenly thought of something, and his eyes revealed a trace of confusion. Is Miss Yao also here in the Eastern Victory Prefecture? It has been a long time since the character Halsey appeared. If you do not have a deep impression of him, you can look back at the previous chapters. Chapter 20, Bright Moon Academy, Chapter 53, Halsey's Encounter, and Chapter 132, Genius with Mystic Body Bloodline. These are the chapters where Halsey and Thief Rat God left. Chapter 663. All right, Chu Hen. Did Miss Yao come to the victorious East region as well? Halsey's casual words caused Chu Hen's body to tremble uncontrollably. His expression suddenly changed as he stared at the other party in disbelief. What did you say? Chu Hen's sudden change in emotions not only caused Halsey to be at a loss, but also the people from Mount Kunliu. What was going on? When he was facing the man from the Fang clan and Qi Lianchong from the Sky Serpent clan, Chu Hen did not lose his composure like this. Playing the zither, Hua Shui and the other girls looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They had heard of the name Yi Yao. Previously, when the alliance of generals had just been established, Chu Hen had asked Long Qingyang to put up an announcement to look for Yi Yao. It was also because of Yi Yao that Chu Hen's departure to Mount Kunliu had been delayed by a few days. Although they had never seen the Yi Yao that the two of them were talking about, they could clearly see that she was definitely a rather important person to Chu Hen. You saw little Yao? Where is she now? Chu Hen's emotions were clearly fluctuating as he stared at Halsey's slightly confused face. What's wrong? Did Miss Yao disappear? Yes. Chu Hen let out a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He then said in a solemn voice, Little Yao has already left the Sacred Star dynasty for a few years. I only found out about this before I came to the victorious East region. Where did you see her? How is she now? I see. Halsey calmed himself down and replied, I'm not sure if that person is Miss Yao. I just feel that she looks a little similar, even though Chu Hen and Halsey were both from the Sacred Star dynasty. But to be honest, Halsey wasn't particularly familiar with Yi Yao. He only knew her and met her a few times. Apart from that, they didn't talk much. Therefore, Halsey's tone was also a little suspicious. However, for some reason, Chu Hen was certain that the person he was talking about was most likely Yi Yao. After all, the 100 Kingdoms province was not very big. The news of Chu Hen destroying the Sacred Star dynasty caused a sensation in the entire prefecture. If Yi Yao was in the 100 Nations state, it was impossible for her not to return to the imperial capital. In that case, it was very likely that Yi Yao had already left the 100 Nations continent. Tell me more about the situation you encountered, Chu Hen said. Halsey nodded slightly. At that time, I had just come out from resting in the deep mountains. When I was about to leave, I accidentally saw a figure on a mountain peak. She was quite a distance away from me. From afar, she looked similar to Miss Yao. Didn't you call for her? I wanted to, but a group of men in black came from behind. Then, she left with them. Halsey replied without hesitation. As he wasn't clear about the situation, he didn't dare to show himself. Men in black? Hearing these 3 words, Chu Hen couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Those men in black have a rather cold aura. They're definitely not good people. I don't think Miss Yao is with them, so I thought I got the wrong person and didn't pay much attention to it. Under normal circumstances, if he saw someone he knew, he would usually follow them to the end. Halsey treated it as an apology and didn't think too much about it. However, he didn't expect to meet Chu Hen here. Halsey was a little confused, so he asked casually. He didn't expect that Yi Yao had been missing for so long. Maybe she's little Yao, Chu Hen murmured softly. His brows were slightly furrowed, and he seemed to be deep in thought. Halsey hesitated for a moment, then said, Chu Hen, the mysterious person who looks like Miss Yi Yao, is very powerful. Her cultivation base is most likely above mine. Oh, also, her aura is even colder than those men in black. Even I could feel a chill at that time. Powerful cultivation base, cold aura. This was what Halsey was most confused about. Back in the Sacred Star Dynasty, although Yi Yao was talented, her cultivation base was average, and she was young. It was hard to imagine that she had changed so much in just a few years. Therefore, Halsey was more suspicious. After hearing what the other party had to say, Chu Hen became silent. However, a monstrous wave had risen in his heart. In his mind, the mysterious black-clothed person he met in Haitian City suddenly appeared. After the other party killed dozens of people, the instant he turned around and left, Chu Hen clearly felt that the other party's figure had an indescribable sense of familiarity. What surprised Chu Hen the most was that the man in black had mastered a power similar to the Tai Qin Yang force. And Chu Hen especially remembered that on the night Wei Qing Fan was killed in the Sacred Star Dynasty, there was a strange change in Yi Yao's body. A mysterious and powerful force exploded from her body, especially her eyes, which turned into the Tai Chi Yin-Yang diagram. Later, Chu Hen attributed it to a mutation in Yi Yao's bloodline. However, this matter had never been verified. Was this series of events a coincidence? Or was there really a connection? Could it be that the mysterious man in black who killed Old Man Liu in Haitian City was Yi Yao? But if it was Yi Yao, how could she not recognize him? The scene was too chaotic? Did she not see it? One question after another occupied Chu Hen's heart, but he felt a headache. The joy of obtaining 2 heaven and earth yellow tokens seemed to have been swept away in an instant. In Chu Hen's mind, all kinds of voice and smile of Yi Yao in the past emerged. Did that pure and innocent girl who was as kind as a piece of white paper really encounter an unimaginable accident? I hope I'm thinking too much. After thinking for a while, Chu Hen did not dwell on it anymore. He took a deep breath and thought to himself, maybe little Yao has already returned to the Sacred Star Dynasty. After this matter is over, I'll find a time to return to the 100 Kingdoms state. Immediately, Chu Hen's eyes lit up again. Seeing this, everyone was slightly relieved. It seemed that this matter did not affect Chu Hen's heart too much. This was for the best. After all, there were even more difficulties waiting for them in front of them. They had to pull themselves together at all times. Where are we going next? Chu Hen looked at Danjun, who was on the back of the red-winged black eagle. She raised her head slightly. An array of determination flashed in her eyes. Shanghai City, Qin, Qi, Shu, and the others' eyes lit up, and they all showed some surprise. Shanghai City is a relatively large, comprehensive city in the victorious East State. It is connected from the north to the south, and it is located on the trade route. The population is also prosperous and dense. When we went out on missions in the past, we often went to Shanghai City to inquire about information. We should be able to buy information about the heaven and earth yellow tokens there. Su Lang explained to Chu Hen. Also, Shanghai City is one of the most important branches of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce, Ling Tao added. Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce? Chu Hen was a little surprised. Yes, the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce is a relatively famous chamber of commerce in the victorious East State, and it is also one of the largest intelligence agencies. Old Liu, who was killed in Haitian City, was a vice president of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce. I see. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He did not need to think to know that Shanghai City must be packed with people from various forces. However, the task of collecting the heaven and earth yellow tokens was only half completed, and they still had to face it. Chapter 664. Shanghai City. After traveling for more than 10 days, Chu Hen, the people from Mount Kunlu, and his old friend, Mouse, who he had reunited with after a long time, arrive at this large city where many people gathered. Since there was no place to park the demonic beasts, Chu Hen and Dan Jun ordered the Shurian Evil Dragon and the Red-Winged Black Hawk to hunt for food and rest in the forest on the outskirts of the city. It didn't take long for them to enter Shanghai City. The bustling Shanghai City was full of people. The wide streets were crowded with people coming and going. Apart from the local residents, there were also many outsiders. There were crooks mixed in with the honest folks. Obviously, they were all here for the heaven and earth mystic yellow token. Let's go to the courier station first, Danjin said. Chu Hen nodded his head. In comparison, Danjin's experience in going out was plentiful, and his ability to carry out missions surpassed his own. The other party knew how to use various channels to obtain the information he wanted. Shanghai City is so big. Hua Shui happily walked in front, jumping and jumping. Her big eyes were full of curiosity. From time to time, she would touch something here and there, causing the vendors on both sides of the street to complain. Why would she touch something if she didn't sell it? Seeing this, everyone shook their heads and smiled. After a while, Danjin led them to a place called Guest Manor. This was definitely the most luxurious relay station they had ever seen. Luxurious skyscrapers stood tall in the magnificent manor. The front yard was spacious. In the garden, there were rockeries, pavilions, waterside pavilions, and everything else. Even the mansions of the nobles would not be as luxurious as this. There are a lot of masters living here. As soon as they entered the yard, Haozi said in a deep voice. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes. There were indeed many powerful auras hidden in this manor. Obviously, many masters from different forces were gathered here. Honorable guests, do you need any help? Soon, a middle-aged man dressed like a steward came over respectfully with a professional and modest smile on his face. Danjin took out a glamorous crystal chip and handed it over. The middle-aged man took it and looked at it for a while. Then, he returned it to Danjun with both hands. Oh, it's Lord Shan from the Kunliu sect. Please come in. Immediately, under the guidance of the middle-aged man, everyone came to an independent guest house. The environment of the guest house was very unique. The unique garden was planted with colorful plants, and all of them were rare and precious species. There were more than a dozen rooms in the guest house. Every room's door was open, and the light inside was bright. From the north to the south, one could see the simple but elegant furnishings inside. Wow, Senior Brother Shan Jun is so honored. He brought us to live in such a good place as soon as he arrived. Hua Shui said in a low voice. Su Lang, who was standing at the side, found it slightly funny. He replied in a low voice, "You're too naive. It costs at least 2,000 high-grade crystals per person to stay in this place for a night. Do you think it's free for us?" 2,000? Hua Shui was shocked. There were a total of 11 of them. Didn't it mean that staying here for a day would cost them more than 20,000 upper-grade primordial crystal stones? It was really shady. This was what everyone was thinking. Everyone, this way, please. The middle-aged man led everyone to a magnificent living room. Then, a few maids brought freshly brewed tea and placed it in front of everyone. Is Lord Shan going to stay here first? Or do you want to find out more information? Without any unnecessary words, the middle-aged man stood next to Shanjun. The smile on his face gave off a feeling of a profiteer. It was slightly similar to Old Man Liu from Haitian City, It seemed like this place must be related to the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. You know very well what I want. Just name your price. Shan Jun was straightforward. He calmly picked up the teacup next to him and lifted the lid. Wisps of hot air accompanied by a fresh fragrance wafted out. Haha, Lord Shan is really a straightforward person. However, I'm afraid Lord Shan doesn't have to waste money to exchange for information on the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order. Oh, tomorrow afternoon, our Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce will hold a large-scale auction. The finale item is the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order. What? Auctioning the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order? The moment these words left his mouth, everyone present could not help but reveal a surprised expression. Needless to say, the Northern Sky Merchant Group was really quite powerful, and it similarly had a way to earn money. After all, when he was in Heavenly Ocean City, Old Man Lu dared to demand an exorbitant price of 100 million high-grade origin crystal stones for merely the news of the Heaven and Earth Yellow Order. How high would the price of a Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order be? Just the thought of it made one frown. However, it was obvious that no matter how high the price was, there would still be people who would spend money to buy it. Based on the fact that the guest house was filled with powerful powerhouses, one could imagine how popular the auction would be tomorrow. Can we trade it directly? Shan Jun asked indifferently. I'm sorry we can't. The middle-aged man smiled and said, It goes to the highest bidder. I have to tell all of you that there are many powerful competitors this time. If all of you want to take the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order away, I'm afraid you'll have to prepare more money. When they heard this, Su Lang, Ling Tao, and Fu Qin could not help but reveal awkward expressions. The total number of high-grade origin crystal stones they had did not even add up to 50 million, but the information on the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order alone cost 100 million. This was not competitive at all. Of course, if all of you don't have enough money on you, there's another way, bartering. The middle-aged man said. Chu Hen raised his brows and said, What kind of bartering method? You'll use the treasures you have as the bargaining chips. The premise is that the item you want to exchange must be appraised by our internal personnel first. Finally, the value of the appraisal will be used as the bargaining chip. Chu Hen and Shanjin looked at each other and exchanged a silent look. They had a tacit understanding. How many Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders do you have for auction? Chu Hen asked. I'm sorry. This is an internal secret of our Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. I'm not too sure. The middle-aged man replied calmly and continued. Of course, if any of you have any leftover or duplicate Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders that need to be disposed of, you can also hand them over to our Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce for auction. We'll only take a 10,000th of the commission, and all the rest of the money from the auction will be given to you. There were 4 Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders in a set. The Heaven Order, the Earth Order, the Black Order, and the Yellow Order. Only 4 complete ones could be considered set. Even if one collected more than 10 of them, the other 3 types would not be worth 4 of them. Therefore, if someone collected duplicate Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders and brought them to the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce to auction or exchange for other treasures, it was also a good way to earn money. However, Shanjin stood up and said with a smile, Haha, look at us. Do we look like people who have the ability to collect Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders? The biggest taboo when traveling outside was to expose too much. Truly intelligent people often like to pretend to be stupid. Seeing this, the middle-aged man did not ask any further. He looked meaningfully at Chu Hen, who was beside Shan Jun, and immediately bowed with both hands. Since that is the case, I will not disturb your rest. If there is anything, just summon me. With that, the middle-aged man exited the hall and left the guest courtyard. After the middle-aged man left, everyone could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Their faces were more or less filled with cautiousness. The difficulty of collecting Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Orders was increasing. The complicated situation in the Victory Estate was becoming more and more apparent. There were more and more forces participating in the competition. No one knew what would happen in the auction tomorrow. Everyone, go and rest. We are all tired after traveling outside for so many days. We can talk about other things later. Chu Hen stood up and said. Everyone stood up. Hua Shui stretched her arms and said, I can finally lie on the bed. No, I want to have a good sleep. I also want to take a bath and change my clothes. I am so dirty these few days. Let's go. From Haitian City to the Poison Dragon Lake was the source of the soaring wind. Calculating the time, it had been more than 2 months since they left Mount Kunliu. After a tiring journey, they finally had a short break. Immediately, everyone stood up and left. At this moment, Haozi suddenly turned sideways and said to Chu Hen, There shouldn't be any rats in this place, right? Chu Hen was startled at first. Then a faint smile flashed in his eyes. Aren't you a rat? Haozi also smiled. All right, then I will leave first. Then, everyone found a room in the guest courtyard to rest. Chu Hen was the last to leave the hall. He raised his eyes to look at the bright blue sky, then casually found an empty room to enter, and casually closed the door. The atmosphere in this manner was quite quiet. Everything was done very well, and everything that was needed in the room was present. Chu Hen walked to the side of the table and sat down. He casually poured a cup of tea and calmly placed the teacup to his mouth to slowly enjoy it. Wong. Suddenly, there was a slight flow of air in the air. The next moment, a sharp dagger was pressed against Chu Hen's back without any warning. Don't move. If you dare to move, I will take your life. A sinister and deep voice came from behind. They saw that behind Chu Hen stood a short and small man dressed in black. The man covered half of his face below his nose, and the eyes that were revealed were filled with a fierce glint. However, Chu Hen's expression did not change. He was still drinking his tea calmly. There really is a rat. It's your bad luck to meet me. If you want to live, hand over the heaven and earth mystic yellow order. The man said fiercely, I don't have the heaven and earth mystic yellow order. Chu Hen pretended to be stupid and replied, You're courting death. Without saying much, a cold glint flashed through the black-clothed man's eyes. His palm moved, and the dagger in his hand instantly blossomed with a bright and beautiful pattern of light. He raised the dagger and slashed towards Chu Hen's neck. A frivolous sneer appeared at the corner of Chu Hen's mouth. Without waiting for his opponent's attack, a piercingly cold sword aura leaked out from his body. In the next moment, a sharp sword aura suddenly flew out from Chu Hen's back and directly attacked the man's throat. What? The man's expression changed. He did not expect Chu Hen to be able to hurt someone with his back. In a hurry, he bent over and leaped into the air, parallel to the ground. Swoosh. The dazzling sword light almost brushed past his opponent's body. Although his opponent had dodged the attack, the powerful sword chi had still cut through the flesh on his chest. Following that, Chu Hen turned around, lifted his leg, and kicked upwards, solidly landing a kick on his opponent's chest. Bang! The man flew towards the roof above like a sandbag. He originally thought that this kick would at least make a hole in the roof. However, what was unexpected was that the black-clothed man's body actually released a gentle white light. Like a ball of water, it appeared to be in a distorted state. In the next second, he actually passed through the roof and directly disappeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. Wall passing technique. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. No wonder the other party could sneak up behind him just now. It turned out that he had the ability to pass through walls. It seemed that he was not an ordinary thief. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, the man in black suddenly appeared on the roof. However, before he had time to heave a sigh of relief, a hearty laughter followed. I say, big brother, we're all rats. Give me some face and don't steal from your own people. The man's heart trembled. He saw on the roof of a building in front of him, a gentle young man was waiting for him like a rabbit waiting for a stump. His small eyes were full of malicious intent. He did not expect an ambush. Then, Chu Hen, Dan Jun, Fu Lang, and a few other figures flew up from the courtyard below and directly surrounded the man in black. Who told you to come? Dan Jun looked at him coldly, as if she was interrogating a criminal. This person directly went to Chu Hen and did not care about the others. It was obvious that he was certain that Chu Hen had the heaven and earth black yellow order on him. Coupled with the fact that he had a special wall-passing technique, it was enough to prove that he was not an ordinary thief. Get lost. The man in black had a fierce look on his face. He was flustered and exasperated. A powerful aura erupted from him and directly broke through the encirclement of Su Lang, who was the weakest. Su Lang, Fu Lang, and Fu Lang did not say anything. They drew their swords and slashed out two shocking sword rays towards the man. At the same time, Chu Hen, Haozi, and Dan Jun also surrounded him and attacked him from all sides. Bang! The black-clothed man struck out with his palm and directly shattered the two sword beams that were attacking him. Along with a mighty wave of air, he stretched out his arms, and a sharp dagger appeared in his left and right hands. The two daggers were like flowing lights and shadows as they slid towards Su Lang and Fu Qin's throats at the same time. Die. Die my ass. Before the dagger could even touch the skin of the two, Rat had already sent out a flying kick, landing solidly on the left side of his opponent's ribs. Bang! The man flew out and lost his balance in the air. Then, Dan Jun's figure moved. She somersaulted in the air and kicked the man toward Chu Hen. Chu Hen, it's yours. Thank you. Chapter 665. Bang. First, it was Haozi's flying kick, then Dan Jun's kick, and finally he was sent flying by Chu Hen's heavy kick. After 3 consecutive fierce attacks, the black-clothed man crashed into a pavilion, causing more than half of the floor to collapse. Damn, Chu Hen, you destroyed the building. Do you want to pay for it? Haozi exclaimed. Chu Hen smiled faintly and replied nonchalantly, We've only been here for a short while, and a thief has already appeared. I should look for the owner of this place to compensate for my mental damage. That makes sense, but before that, let's boil some water and skin this unscrupulous rat alive. Bang! At the same time, the thief crawled up from the pile of rubble in a panic. The black cloth covering his face had fallen off somewhere, revealing a sharp, thin, and sinister middle-aged face. He glared fiercely at Chu Hen and the others, then turned around and fled without saying a word. That's pretty fast. Chase. Rat teased with a smile. I bet he won't be able to get out. Chu Hen chased after him unhurriedly. The thief seemed to be very familiar with a route of this manner. He did not hesitate at all when choosing his escape route, and it was as if he was familiar with it. The commotion here quickly attracted the attention of the other guests in the relay station. Many people flashed out of their rooms in the guest courtyard and looked around to see what was going on. Seeing that more and more people were alarmed, the thief became even more panicked. His heart was burning with anxiety, and his brows were furrowed like 2 dead silkworms. His expression was unusually ugly. Just as the thief was about to pass through the middle courtyard, a dozen guards of the manor suddenly flew out with sharp weapons in their hands and charged at the thief from all directions. Who are you? Rascal! How dare you cause trouble in my guest villa? Their voices were like thunder, piercing the ears. The thief's expression changed, and he clenched his teeth. He made up his mind and raised a powerful force to attack a guard in front of him. Get away from this, daddy. The majestic aura caused the space to tremble slightly. The mighty power was comparable to a tsunami that broke through a dam. Impudent. Suddenly, a cold and disdainful shout resounded in the heavens and the earth. Swish! In the blink of an eye, a crescent-shaped cyan wind blade streaked across the sky. It was like the shadow of a shuttle that had been chasing after the flowing light for thousands of years. It split the wind and split the waves as it attacked the male thief. Bang! The incomparably swift and fierce wind blade's might was peerless. Like a hot knife through butter, the vast true origin energy that erupted from the male thief was directly split into 2. A thick destructive aura surged out like a tide. The male thief's pupils shrank violently as endless panic filled his face. Hiss! Blood danced in the air as miserable screams rang out. The extremely lethal green wind blade forcibly slashed across the male thief's abdomen, directly splitting him into 2. Hiss! This shocking scene caused the surrounding onlookers to be greatly shocked. The 2 halves of the male thief fell heavily to the ground. The upper half of his body screamed miserably as he clawed at the ground. The ground was immediately dyed scarlet red. The guards immediately surrounded him. Chu Hen, Dan Jun, Hao Zi, and the others also flashed down from the sky. They could not help but slightly frown at the scene before them. Then, a young figure with a grave and stern aura walked unhurriedly from the front. A chilly aura emanated from his body. The guards respectfully retreated to the sides, each of them revealing a look of fear and reverence. This was a young man who looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. He was dressed in luxurious embroidered clothes, and a pair of sword-like eyebrows faintly revealed a hint of ruthlessness. He gave off the feeling that he was swift and decisive, ruthless and merciless. Lu Chuanfeng. The eyes of the male thief, who was still breathing, were scarlet red. He gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to break. He glared at the young man with incomparable hatred. What? He is Lu Chuanfeng? He really lives up to his reputation. He really is as ruthless and merciless as the rumors say. Even he is here. It seems that the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce attaches great importance to the auction tomorrow. A wave of low murmur broke out in the surroundings. The corners of the young man's mouth curled up slightly as he looked at the thief with a sneer. What can I do for you? You are so ruthless. The man stuttered like a grasshopper struggling on its deathbed. Lu Chuanfeng glanced sideways at the man and said indifferently, "Before you die, can you tell me, did you come alone, or did you come with an accomplice?" The indifferent tone was like a gentle breeze, but it gave off an indescribable coldness. The male thief's eyes were about to spit out flames. He slammed his palm on the ground and sent half of his body flying out. He roared in anger. "You dog!" Everyone's heart skipped a beat. "Humph!" Lu Chuanfeng disdainfully smiled. With a wave of his hand, a strange rhythm formed in the surrounding space. With a swish, a wind blade shot out, directly splitting the upper half of the thief's body into two. Blood danced in the air, and broken internal organs flew everywhere. Everyone's faces couldn't help but turn pale. Even Chu Hen faintly wrinkled his brows. This man's methods were extremely ruthless, and his cultivation was very strong. He had probably reached the second level of the Earth Profound Realm, or even close to the third level. "I am Lu Chuanfeng, the manager of this place. This man came in and disturbed everyone. It was my negligence. I hope everyone can forgive me," Lu Chuanfeng said as he looked at Chu Hen, Dan Jun, and the others. It sounded like he was apologizing, but there was no change of emotion in Lu Chuanfeng's eyes. It was calm, cold, and indifferent. "It's all right. There are many people in Shanghai City. It's normal for accidents to happen sometimes." Dan Jun didn't seem to want to provoke the man in front of her. She said a few polite words and decided to let it go. However, at this moment, a few other people slowly walked over from somewhere else. "Hee, young Master Lu is indeed famous for being cold and heartless. Seeing you today, the rumors are true. It was the blood-refining sect. Su Lang, Fu Qin, and the others' eyes were slightly cold. Danjin's face was also slightly cold. There were 7 or 8 people coming. The leader was a young man with sunken eyes and a fair complexion. The aura that this person emitted was exactly the same as Yu Song, who they met in the Poison Dragon Pool. The blood-refining sect was a sect that was more evil and had some unorthodox methods mixed in. Therefore, every disciple of the blood-refining sect would have a faint, evil aura, as the blood-refining sect's mortal enemy. Mount Kuan, Lu could tell the other party's identity with just a glance. "Brother Liao Rue, how have you been?" Lu Chuanfeng glanced sideways at the man in the lead. His tone was still cold. It's rare that young Master Lu still remembers me. I'm honored. Then, Liao Rue shifted his gaze to the people from Mount Kuan Lu. "I heard that all of you killed my good-for-nothing junior brother Yu Song in the Poison Dragon Pool. Is this true?" Dan Jun and the others were shocked. All of them had a solemn expression on their faces. Su Lang and Fu Qin subconsciously tightened their grip on the treasured sword in their hands and got into a formation. There's no need to be so agitated. However, Liao Rui didn't seem to have the intention to make a move here. He glanced sideways at Lu Chuanfeng and smiled indifferently. Since young Master Lu is here, how would I dare to act rashly here? Moreover, my junior brother Yusong was killed because his skills were inferior. As his senior brother, although it's painful for me, I can't avenge him. Don't you think so? Lu Chuanfeng looked up coldly and said calmly, "Since you're at the guest manor, you're a distinguished guest of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. If you have any grudges, please put it aside for now." Of course, of course." Liao Rui echoed with a smile. He indeed didn't seem to care much about Yusong's death. Danjun narrowed his eyes and said, "Please continue chatting. We've just entered the city and are a little tired. We'll be going back to rest first. Farewell." Danjun, Chu Hen, Haozi, and the others turned and left. The cold light in Liao Rui's eyes disappeared as he watched them leave. He then turned to Lu Chuanfeng and said, "Hee, young Master Lu, you've come at the right time today." Lu Chuanfeng frowned slightly. "What do you want to say?" "Nothing. I just wanted to ask if you're interested in plotting something big." Not interested." After saying that, Lu Chuanfeng left behind an afterimage on the spot and disappeared from the courtyard. Liao Rui stood where he was and swept his gaze across the powerful auras hiding in the dark. He sneered and said to himself, "Ha! Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce, your appetite is really big." After a while, Chu Hen, Danjun, Haozi, and the others returned to their guest house. "I didn't expect people from the Blood Refining Hall to be here. It seems that we must be more careful," Su Lang said in a low voice. Based on their understanding of Liao Rui, he was also a vicious and dangerous person. Yu Song, whom they met in the poisonous dragon pond, couldn't be compared to him. "But how did he know that we killed Yu Song?" Hua Shui asked. "It's simple. There were so many people in the poisonous dragon pond, and they all saw us go there. He could guess it after thinking about it." "Could that person just now be sent by Liao Rui?" Ling Tao said. Danjun thought for a while and shook her head. "Rather than saying that he was sent by Liao Rui, I suspected someone else." "Boo." Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. Chu Hen uttered a few clear and heavy words. They all widened their eyes. It sounded too surprising. Only Danjun's eyes revealed a hint of approval. "Aren't we guests of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce?" Nongqi asked confusedly. "There are no eternal guests, only eternal prophets. As one of the most famous intelligence agencies in the Victory State, Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce must have known that I have the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow token. That's why they came to me alone." Chu Hen voiced out his thoughts. "But why did Lu Chuanfeng want to kill that person? Wouldn't it be better to let him go?" Hua Shui continued to ask. "Because that person can't leave anymore. In order to prevent us from revealing their secret after we capture him alive, he killed him directly." Hiss. After hearing that, the few of them couldn't help but gasp. If that was really the case, it would be too unsettling. There was no safe place in the entire Shanghai city. But don't worry, everyone. No one will disturb us from now on. It's fine if it happens once, but if it happens too many times, anyone with discerning eyes will notice. Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce has always maintained a good reputation. They definitely won't ruin their image because of this," Danjun said with absolute certainty. Everyone nodded, and the uneasiness in their hearts faded a little. Chu Hen raised his hand slightly. "It's getting late. Go back and rest. Let's see how the auction goes tomorrow." The few of them didn't say anything else and left one after another. Meanwhile, Chu Hen felt a little uneasy. Shanghai City was more chaotic than he imagined. It seemed peaceful, but there were undercurrents surging in the dark. He wondered if the auction tomorrow would go smoothly. A day's time flew by. It was a peaceful night. Just like what Danjun said, no matter who the mastermind was, they had restrained themselves after the bloodshed yesterday. In the morning, about an hour before the auction, Chu Hen, Danjun, and the rest arrived at the Shanghai City branch of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. The Northern Song Tower. This was also the venue of the auction. Although it was only a branch, the Northern Song Tower could be said to be the most luxurious and imposing place in the entire city. The dazzling skyscraper was like a palace in the imperial city, majestic and magnificent. Although there was still an hour before the auction started, there were already countless people gathered outside the northern Song Tower. It was a dense mass of people like a swarm of ants. Everyone was attracted by the reputation of the Heaven and Earth Black Yellow Order. Everyone, if you want to enter the auction venue, you'll need at least 300 million high-grade origin crystal stones. I hope everyone here will thank you for your cooperation. At the entrance of a northern Song Tower, a slightly chubby old man in luxurious clothes spoke loudly. 300 million high-grade origin crystal stones? Whoosh! The crowd went into an uproar when these words were spoken. This was really obviously bullying the poor. One needed 300 million high-grade origin crystal stones as a bargaining chip to be able to enter. The Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce was really rich and overbearing. At this moment, under the lead of the middle-aged manager from yesterday, Chu Hen's group had first arrived at a comparatively smaller pavilion at the south of the Northern Song Tower. After walking through a long corridor and a bustling hall, everyone finally arrived at a quiet living room. The soundproofing effect of the living room was very good, and it was extremely quiet inside. The floor was covered with a brand new carpet, and the tables, chairs, and tea tables were made of precious nanmu. Esteemed guests, please have some tea. A few pretty young maids served everyone passionately. Subsequently, a seductive woman with thick makeup and a voluptuous figure walked out from the inner door of the living room. President Nan, the middle-aged manager, respectfully welcomed them and introduced, "These are the distinguished guests of Mount Kunlu." "I know." The woman let out a clear and melodious laugh. Her pair of eyes seemed to have a captivating charm as they landed on Dan Jun. "I've met Master Dan once before. Master Dan used to trade with President Liu many times in the past." Dan Jun smiled faintly. "Regarding President Liu's death, I express that it's a pity." The woman chuckled. "You think it's a pity, but I'm actually quite happy. If he didn't die, I wouldn't be able to become the branch president." Everyone could not help but be stunned. This woman was really direct with her words. She did not play by the rules at all. Chapter 666. President Nan, this is our boss. If you have anything to say, just say it to him. Danjin suddenly pointed at Chu Hen beside her and said such a sentence. Not only was President Nan startled, but the people from Mount Kunliu were also startled. When they were at Mount Kunliu, didn't Danjin clearly say that she didn't like Chu Hen? In less than 2 months, she already announced that Chu Hen was the boss. In fact, after everything that happened along the way, Danjun had already changed her opinion of Chu Hen. Everyone knew how capable Chu Hen was. Now that Danjun was willing to hand over the leadership of the group to Chu Hen, it could be considered as a form of recognition. Hee, this young master looks a little unfamiliar. May I know which young talent you are? President Nan was indeed worthy of being one of the managers of the Northern Song Tower. She quickly regained her calmness, and a faint ripple appeared in her alluring eyes. As she spoke, she naturally leaned towards Chu Hen. Although President Nan was also a first-class beauty and exuded a charm that men yearned for, Chu Hen had seen his fair share of beauties. Compared to Luo Mengshang, Xilan, and Huang Fuqing, there was still quite a gap. Chu Hen calmly replied, "I am Chu Hen, a nobody. I'm afraid that President Nan will laugh at me if I tell you. Young Master Chu is too humble. Since ancient times, the more unknown a person is, the more you shouldn't underestimate him. Don't you think so? Young Master Chu." President Nan let out a charming smile, like a blossoming flower. Chu Hen smiled, raised his eyebrows, and said, "President Nan, there's still half an hour before the auction starts. We should talk about proper business. I'd like to hear the details. I have something that I need your help to appraise. What is it?" As President Nan spoke, she waved at Maid behind her. The latter respectfully walked forward with a tray and gestured for Chu Hen to put the appraised item on the tray. Buzz. Following that, a bright white light flashed, and a strange precious fruit immediately appeared in Chu Hen's palm. The precious fruit seemed to be surrounded by golden patterns, and it was wrapped in a thin layer of light. Its appearance was like a delicate little person that had shrunk into a ball, just like the legendary ginseng fruit. Myriad beast fruit? President Nan's eyes flickered with a hint of surprise. Exactly. Chu Hen casually placed the 10,000 beast fruit on the tray. Is that all? Just the same. Chu Hen answered with certainty. President Nan smiled. She could tell that Chu Hen had a lot of thousand beast fruits on him. Otherwise, he would not be able to compete with a single fruit. Everyone, please wait a moment. I'll get a professional appraiser to evaluate it. Guild leader Nan, please go ahead. Chu Hen waved his hand generously. After that, the people from the Northern Sky Merchant Group left successively, and only 2 maidservants were left to wait at the side. How much can 1,000 beast fruit sell for? Howsy asked casually. Chu Hen shook his head, indicating that he was not too sure himself. After all, it was his first time coming into contact with something like that. The others were also puzzled. Something like the 10,000 beast fruit was usually priceless, and there weren't many transactions on the market. There was no accurate price for it. How many thousand beast fruits do you have? Hua Shui asked curiously as she nudged Chu Hen. Chu Hen smiled without saying a word, but there was a hint of smugness between his brows. 100, 200? Don't tell me it's 300? Hua Shui gestured with her fingers. The others also looked at each other expectantly. The situation that day was especially chaotic. Everyone was fighting for the 1,000 beast fruit, but Chu Hen actually used the one-sword-flying immortal art to pluck the 1,000 beast fruit. It immediately caused many people to curse. 300? Chu Hen shook his head with a smile. At that moment, the inner door of the hall opened again. President Nan returned with a middle-aged manager. President Nan wore a professional smile on his face. As he gestured for the maidservant behind him to return the 1,000 beast fruit used for appraisal to Chu Hen, he said, "Young Master Chu, after the appraisal, our appraisers have given us a price of 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones. Are you satisfied with this price?" 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones? Qi Teng, Lu Qi, and Hua Shui were all surprised. We're rich. We're definitely going to be rich. However, Chu Hen faintly furrowed his eyebrows without making a sound. He had an expression that was not particularly satisfied. President Nan could not help but ask, "What's wrong? Does young Master Chu think it's too low?" "It's indeed a bit low." Chu Hen answered without hesitation. The others were stunned. 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones was considered low? After all, 2,000 beast fruits were worth 100 million. What was Chu Hen thinking in his heart? Then Dan Zhun chimed in, "President Nan, isn't 50 million a bit low? I'm sure you all know the effect of the 1,000 beast fruit. It allows you to get close to beasts. If you get a beast emperor as a helper, it's worth far more than that. A beast emperor is indeed worth more than 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones. But the most important factor is how to get the beast you like to eat the 1,000 beast fruit." President Nan explained calmly. President Nan calmly explained, "The 1,000 beast fruit does have some magical effects on beasts, but a beast of the beast emperor level is no less intelligent than a human. Even if you put the 1,000 beast fruit in front of it, it might not eat it. Every beast is cautious, let alone a beast emperor. Am I right? That makes sense," Chu Hen said, while rubbing his nose. President Nan smiled and continued, "The truth is, using the 1,000 beast fruit to lure beasts is basically a gamble. If you're lucky, you might be able to lure a beast emperor. If you're unlucky, you'll end up feeding it to some ordinary mountain cats and foxes. Trust us, 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones is already a premium." Chu Hen did not know what else to say since President Nan had already put it this way. He smiled embarrassedly. "All right, 50 million it is then. It's decided then." President Nan raised his eyebrows and smirked. "May I know how much Master Chu wants to exchange for the 1,000 beast fruits? Is it possible to barter for it? I'll use the 1,000 beast fruit as a bargaining chip later at the auction." President Nan hesitated for a moment before saying, "According to the rules of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce, that's not allowed. But since it's your first time here at the Northern Azure Tower and you're a distinguished guest of Mount Kunliu, I'll make an exception. I will make an exception this time. You can use the 10,000 beast fruit as a bargaining chip." "Thank you so much." Chu Hen smiled politely. "Master Chu, You're being too courteous. But before that, you'll have to show us 500 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones as proof of entry. This is the rules set by the headquarters. I can't make an exception. Please forgive me. That's easy. Finished speaking. Chu Hen raised his right hand and placed it on top of the maid's tray in front of him. A bright light flashed, and in the next moment, 10 sparkling and translucent thousand beast fruits appeared on the tray. President Nan's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, "Please wait a moment. We'll be right back." Following that, President Nan brought the 10,000 beast fruits into the inner room of the hall. Not long after, the other party came back with a square blue chip in his hand. Danjun also had one of this kind of chip. Master Chu, this is the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce's VIP pass. There are 500 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones in it. You can withdraw the high-grade primordial crystal stones from any of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce's branches. Oh, Chu Hen's eyes lit up. He took the chip from President Nan. The chip shone brightly, as if it was made from the essence of a blue crystal. There was a strange energy ripple from a rune formation inside. It must be controlled by some kind of mysterious rune formation. At the center of the chip, there was the word Chu in seal script, followed by the word 500 million. It was obviously the number of upper-grade primordial crystal stones inside the chip. Chu Hen was secretly amazed. This world was so big, there were indeed all sorts of strange things. As one of the most famous chambers of commerce in the Eastern Victory State, the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce had its own unique characteristics. "Do you have any other questions, Master Chu?" President Nan asked. "That's all. If that's the case, the auction will begin soon. You can head to the venue now. Just show us this chip and someone will receive you." "Thank you. You're too kind. This is what we should do." Then, under the guidance of the two maids, the crowd left the hall and headed toward the venue. "I didn't expect you to be so greedy. Do you think 50 million is too little?" Hua Shui patted Chu Hen's shoulder lightly. "You don't believe me when I say you're stupid." Chu Hen did it on purpose. Chi Yitung shook his head and said, "On purpose? Why? If we agreed too readily, wouldn't we be telling others that we have a lot of thousand beast fruits? If we were to be stingy, they wouldn't be able to judge our competitive strength. Don't show off your wealth. Don't you understand this?" So that's why. Hua Shui was suddenly enlightened. No wonder Dan Jun, who had always been generous, started to bargain with her. It was because of this. "You guys are so smart." "Oomph." Hua Shui pouted and snorted. Then she hugged Chu Hen's arm and said with a wrong face, The most handsome Chu Hen in history. Tell me how many thousand beast fruits you've gotten." Chu Hen was angry and amused at the same time. This girl changed her attitude too quickly. He was instantly defeated by the other party's silly look. Chapter 667. Distinguished guests, this way, please. Along with a sweet female voice, a beautiful attendant welcomed Chu Hen, Dan Jun, and the others into the auction venue. After exchanging 10,000 beast fruits for 500 million high-grade origin crystal stones, Chu Hen naturally became a distinguished guest of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. The treatment he received was also unusual. Before coming here, Chu Hen had never imagined that 1,000 beast fruit could be sold for a high price of 50 million high-grade origin crystal stones, and the highest price he expected in his heart was only 30 million. After all, he had never come into contact with a treasure of heaven and earth like the 1,000 beast fruit before, so he didn't have an accurate idea of how practical it was. Of course, the higher the price the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce offered, the more advantageous it would be to Chu Hen and the others. During the trip to the wind-soaring Origin Ancient City, their group was undoubtedly the biggest winner, especially Chu Hen, who could be said to have returned with a full load. At least half of the close to 1,000 beast fruits fell into Chu Hen's pocket. He even obtained dozens of thousand beast fruits from the storage device of the man from the Fong clan after killing him. Just by relying on these 1,000 beast fruits, Chu Hen had truly become rich overnight, and he had quite a bit of confidence towards the auction that was about to begin. Whoosh! Accompanied by a wave of clamor, Chu Hen, Dan Jun, and the others arrived at a large venue. A square auction platform was set up in the center of the venue, and in front of the platform were rows of seats that were shaped like stairs. The seats increased from low to high, and the further back it was, the higher the terrain was. At the very back was a wide corridor, and in front of the corridor was a limited number of private rooms. Every private room had a curtain that could only be seen through the curtain, and the faces of the people inside could not be seen clearly. Then, the attendant in charge of reception brought Chu Hen and the others to a private room. There were a few comfortable chairs and tea tables in the room, and, sitting on the chairs, one could directly look down at the auction platform and the entire venue. Sitting here, there was a unique sense of superiority. Every private room had a semicolon, and the number of this private room was 24. Esteemed guests, are you satisfied with this grandstand? There was a gentle and sweet smile on the maid's face, but under this smile, there was more professional etiquette. Danjun nodded slightly. Very good. You wait outside. After saying that, Danjun casually took out a few shiny high-grade crystals and handed them to the other party. The maidservant's eyes lit up, and she respectfully accepted the primordial crystal stones and repeatedly thanked him. The others couldn't help but cast astonished gazes over. However, after thinking about it, they understood. Although the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce had huge assets and strength, these lowly maids were basically girls from poor families. Although they seemed to be well off on the surface, they actually had to depend on the mood of others every day. Sit. Danjun nodded and said. There were only 3 to 4 wide chairs in each room. Chu Hen and Danjun sat down one after the other, while the last chair was naturally for Haozi. I want to sit too. Hua Shui pouted and looked pitiful. Haozi, who was just about to sit, was stunned. Then he smiled and said, Then sit here. Hua Shui. Fu Qin hurriedly stopped him. She looked back at Haozi and said, Senior brother Zhou, you're a guest. Naturally, you should sit. We'll just stand. Fu Qin was a rather well-behaved person, and the way she addressed Haozi was also different from others. However, this didn't mean that she treated Haozi as an outsider. It was just that the host and the guest were friends. Haozi laughed heartily. It's all right. We're all friends, so there's no need to be so formal. Then he smiled and nodded at Hua Shui. Hua Shui naturally didn't care about anything else. Not to mention Haozi. Even if it was Chu Hen's seat, she would still sit without any hesitation. Thank you, Senior Brother Haozi. Hua Shui smiled sweetly, and then swaggered to the left of Chu Hen under the helpless gaze of Fu Qin, Ji Shu, and the others. Regarding this, Danjun didn't say anything more. After all, the team was mainly led by Chu Hen, and Chu Hen also spoiled Hua Shui. There was no need to say anything else. As time went by, more and more people entered the venue. The ordinary stands were gradually filled with people, and the private rooms that were separated from each other also had their curtains drawn down. Behind the curtains, mysterious figures were more or less emitting a powerful aura that caused people to feel awe and veneration. Many powerful figures have come, Shan Jun muttered to herself. The corner of Chu Hen's eyes slightly narrowed, and a trace of solemnity flashed across his eyes. All the superpowers were fighting for the Heaven and Earth Qian yellow token. Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce separated the crowd in this way, which could be regarded as avoiding some unnecessary troubles. Liao Rui of the Blood Refining Hall was probably also in one of the private rooms. Although there was a curtain in front of them, it only hung down halfway. It didn't affect the panoramic view of the auction stage from here. This was the advantage of being able to look down from a high vantage point. At this moment, dozens of awe-inspiring guards walked out from the internal passageway of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce in the area behind the auction stage. The person in the lead gave off a cold aura, and the wisps of gloominess between his eyebrows made people feel afraid. This person was none other than Lu Chuanfeng, who killed the thief in the guest costume yesterday. The appearance of Lu Chuanfeng made the atmosphere of the entire venue quieter. Many people's faces showed a little fear. Lu Chuanfeng actually guarded the venue in person. It seems that the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce attaches great importance to today's auction. Don't you talk nonsense? Don't you know what's being auctioned today? The Heaven and Earth Qian yellow token. Of course, Lu Chuanfeng will personally supervise it. Under the whispering gazes of the people in the venue, Lu Chuanfeng raised his cold eyes slightly and slightly raised his hand. The guards behind him then spread out and stood neatly on the surrounding walkways of the venue, guarding every entrance and exit. Such a strict posture was enough to show that the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce attached great importance to the following auction. Time's up. The auction is about to begin. President Nan, please. A loud and clear voice reverberated throughout the venue. What followed was an earth-shattering applause and cheers. Following that, a voluptuous and beautiful figure walked out from the side door and onto the auction stage. It was President Nan, who had previously received Chu Hen and his group in the Northern Azure Towers cabinet. At this moment, she had changed into a relatively gorgeous outfit. Her long hair was tied up high, making her look less flirtatious and more formal. However, that fiery figure and the flirtatious look that she occasionally revealed still caused many of the men present to have wild and fanciful thoughts. Honored guests, we apologize for the long wait. President Nan wore a professional and charming smile on her face, causing the atmosphere of the venue to rise. President Nan, long time no see. You're getting more and more beautiful. Hurry up and start. Take out whatever good stuff you have. We've waited for so long. It all depends on today. Below the stage, all sorts of voices mixed together, causing the entire venue's ground to faintly tremble. President Nan didn't pay too much attention to these voices. Her gaze swept across the tens of curtained rooms at the top and the back area. To be honest, these people sitting behind the curtains today were the real big customers. Haha, looks like everyone can't wait any longer. Then I won't waste any more time. Let's welcome the first auction item of today. President Nan was already very experienced in this kind of situation. She knew what everyone wanted. Instead of saying a bunch of polite words, it was better to start directly to adjust the atmosphere. Shortly after, a slender young girl leisurely walked up the stage with a tray of long hair. On the tray in her hand was a treasured sword. The treasured sword was abnormally sharp, and its entire body was a red crystal color. Strands of illusory light patterns lingered around it. Blazing sword. Saint weapon grade treasured sword. President Nan nimbly picked up the treasured sword and gently stroked the blade with her fair fingers. A crisp metallic sound echoed in the air as a scorching red airwave spread in all directions. A deep tiger's roar could be faintly heard in the air. This blazing sword was forged by a top weapon refinement master. Apart from the 10,000 years volcanic lava as its main material, a drop of blood essence from the 9th grade beast monarch, the flaming demon heavenly tiger was also added. With everyone's eyesight, I'm sure you can tell how powerful this blazing sword is. President Nan paused for a moment before her voice rose. The starting bid is 300 million high-grade origin crystal stones. 300 million high-grade origin crystal stones. To an ordinary person, this was definitely a huge amount of wealth. However, it was the first auction item after all, so it couldn't be of a low grade. The blazing sword with a starting bid of 300 million was more suitable. 310 million, 320 million, 350 million. Bidding sounds could be heard from the audience. It must be said that the people who came today were all rich. In other words, they were the upper echelons of the victorious East State. Chu Hen, who was behind the curtain, shook his head inwardly. At this moment, the difference between the victorious East State and the Hunter Nation State was obvious. Even the Saint Star dynasty that he was from would not have an auction of such a high price. When he recalled the beginning, he only had a few mid-grade origin crystal stones as cultivation resources every month. He felt as though the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Just as the sect leader of the Thousand Cranes sect, Qi Zhang, had said, the victorious East State was like a giant in front of the Hunter Nation State. After such a long time, Chu Hen was slowly able to feel the difference between them. Chapter 668. 390 million. 420 million. The first auction item was the Saint weapon, the fire sword. The continuous bids sounded like a group of heroes competing for a deer. Listening to the voices, President Nan on the auction stage had a charming smile on her face. The starting price of $300 million had increased by more than $100 million in just a short period of time. It was quite fast. $500 million. Suddenly, a loud voice resonated in the crowd's ears. Everyone's gaze swept towards the direction of private room number 2 in unison. Behind the thin curtain, a few silhouettes could be vaguely seen. The price had increased from $420 million to $500 million. It was a gap of $80 million. The people who were bidding earlier immediately shut their mouths. The guest in private room number 2 has bid 500 million high-grade primal crystal stones. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? President Nan began to use her ability to adjust the atmosphere. If there's no one else, then this fire sword will be his. The crowd was still silent. 530 million. At this moment, another voice came from another private room. President Nan was overjoyed. She raised her arms with a smile on her face and said, "The guest in private room number 9 has bid 530 million. Is there anyone else who's willing to bid a higher price for today's first auction item?" She purposely emphasized the word first auction item. Sometimes, some people from powerful forces were very prideful and liked to compete for appearances. Even if they knew the item was not worth the price, they would still spend a lot of money just to appease their pride. 600 million. As expected, the man in private room number 2 had directly raised the price to 600 million. There was a slight uproar in the crowd. That person was really generous. Many people tilted their heads slightly, trying to see who was inside through the gap of the curtain. It was only the first round, and he had already spent 600 million high-grade primal crystal stones. That was equivalent to losing 600 million during the competition for the Heaven and Earth Black Yellow Order later. However, the Northern Shin Trading Company did not care about that. In President Nan's opinion, money was enough. Congratulations to the guest in private room number 2 for winning the fire sword. President Nan smiled and raised her hand. She said to the maidservant next to her, "Bring the fire sword to the guest in private room number 2. "Yes." With graceful steps, the maid carried the fiery sword and walked through the corridor with a smile on her face. Under everyone's gaze, she walked toward the second private room. The auction rules of the Northern Shin Chamber of Commerce were that once the hammer was hammered, the transaction would be carried out immediately and the settlement would be completed on the spot before the next round of auction would begin. There are so many rich people in the victorious East region. If they were in our 100 Nations region, they would all be as rich as a country. Chi Tong said casually in room 24. Indeed, Hauzi echoed. As the largest province in the East region, the victorious East province is home to tens of thousands of tribes and countless countries of various sizes. The difference between the highest point and lowest point here is huge, but that fiery clam sword really isn't worth 600 million. In the past few years, Hauzi and the rat thief god had traveled far and wide and seen all kinds of storms. The sharpness of his vision was no longer something that the odd-job worker, who was regarded as trash, could compare to. He also had a relatively accurate estimate of the value of these auctioned items. It must be known that just like spiritual weapons, sacred weapons were also divided into different grades. Those sacred weapons that could be ranked on the sacred weapon ranking were all priceless treasures. The Northern Shin Chamber of Commerce would definitely not take them out for auction. Even if they were willing to take them out, the price would be unimaginably high. Although this fiery sword was also a sacred weapon, it was just an ordinary sacred sword. Its power was above that of a spiritual weapon, but it was far from being comparable to the sacred weapon that was ranked on the ranking list. The fiery sword's value was around 400 to 500 million high-grade primordial crystals. Of course, this was only under normal circumstances. Another reason was to buy the right one at a premium. The fiery sword was a fire-type sacred sword. If the other party grasped the fire-type power, they would be able to form a kind of compatibility with the fiery sword, and the explosive power of the fiery sword would be even stronger. At this time, it was not strange to spend a little more money. Soon, the first round of transactions was completed. The maid brought the fiery sword along with the tray to the second private room. In her hand was a gorgeous crystal chip. This chip was multicolored and was emitting colorful patterns of light. Most of the people present knew that this was the internal crystal card of the Northern Chin Chamber of Commerce. During transactions, it could directly transfer the chips in the customer's hands to this colorful crystal card. The process was very simple and convenient. Next is the second auction item. Without any delay, the second treasure was immediately revealed on the stage. In front of the crowd was a set of aqua blue battle armor. The battle armor was overflowing with color and was as thin as a cicada's wings. It looked like a piece of silk. Sacred Eyes Firefly armor. President Nin took the battle armor from the maid's hands with great familiarity and unfolded it, showing it to the crowd. This set of sacred armor is made from the silk of a level 9 Beast Emperor, the 1,000-year Ice Silkworm King. It's faintly like a chiffon and can be worn close to the body. After wearing it, you won't be afraid of fire or water, nor will you be able to break through it. It can also release the power of cold silk. It's a sacred armor that focuses on defense and supports offense. The starting bid is 350 million high-grade primordial crystals. The quality of the Sacred Eyes Firefly armor was obviously better than the fiery sword. The starting bid was also 50 million higher than the starting bid. The crowd started bidding fiercely. 380 million, 400 million, 450 million. After a series of bidding, the Sacred Eyes Firefly armor was finally sold at a price of 730 million high-grade primordial crystals. The person who won the sacred armor was the competitor in private room number 3. The bidders sitting in the ordinary seats felt helpless about the lavish and mysterious people who hid behind the curtains. They felt like they were just there to make up the numbers. Before they could even start bidding, the price that was announced had already made them swallow their words. After the second round of auction items were sold, the third round began. This time, it was a gorgeous brocade box that was brought onto the stage. President Nin deftly opened the brocade box. A refreshing fragrance wafted out, causing the crowd's eyes to light up. Inside the brocade box were 2 pills the size of a longan. One of the pills was emitting a cool aura and was surrounded by blue runes. The other pill was flowing with a bright gold color and was emitting a scorching aura. Heavenly Dragon Saliva Pill, Tiger Strength Pill. President Nan raised his hand and said in a loud voice, "I believe everyone is familiar with the effects of these 2 pills, so I won't explain any further. The starting price of the 2 pills is 100 million high-grade primary crystal stones, which is 200 million primary crystal stones." As soon as he finished speaking, various voices came from the crowd. 240 million, 260 million, 280 million, 300 million. The practicality of the pills could not be compared to the 2 sacred weapons, so the crowd's bids were relatively small. Most of the bids were 20 million and above. There was no overwhelming advantage. After 300 million, it would become 10 million and 10 million stacked on top of each other. 370 million, 370 million. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? President Nan asked loudly. 390 million, 390 million. Who else wants these 2 elixirs? President Nan continued to adjust the atmosphere. This time, there was basically no one bidding in the private rooms behind the curtains. After all, for the factions in the victorious East State, pills were relatively easy to obtain. Just as the crowd thought the 2 pills would be sold for 390 million, a calm voice suddenly came from room number 24. Chapter 669. 500 million. All of a sudden, an indifferent voice came from private room number 24. Everyone in the audience was astonished. Which great power was this rich person from? The previous bets were stacked with 10 million and 20 million, but this time, he directly added more than 100 million. It was really shocking. Meanwhile, President Nan, who was on the auction stage, also looked at private room number 24 in surprise. The voice was very familiar. She had heard it before the auction started. A young master has made a bid of 500 million. If there's no higher bid, these 2 pills are his. In private room number 24. The one who made the bid was Chu Hen. Dan Jun, Hao Zi, and the others who were next to him were not surprised. The Heavenly Dragon Saliva Pill and the Tiger Power Pill were great supplements. They were even helpful to Wu Xiao, who was in the profound world realm, let alone the void-piercing realm. 10 million. At this moment, a gentle voice came from outside. It was Liao Rui from the blood-refining hall. The few of them couldn't help but be startled. This voice was indeed the Liao Rui they saw at the guest villa yesterday. The few of them looked at each other, then looked at Liao Rui one after another. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, Chu Hen shouted out another price. 600 million. He directly added another 90 million. The atmosphere in the hall was a little restless. In the next second, another bid came from the room where the blood refining hall was located. 610 million. 700 million. 710 million. It was obvious that Liao Rui's real purpose was not to get the 2 pills. He was purely trying to argue with Chu Hen and suppress Mount Kunliu's momentum. Everyone in the hall began to watch the fight from the sidelines. It was obvious that the people in the 2 rooms were enemies. Under such circumstances, there was no need for them to get involved. President Nan was quite surprised that the 2 pills had reached a price of over 700 million. Normally, 500 million was already the highest price they could offer. Of course, the higher the bid, the better the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce was. Earning more was the way to go. 710 million. That's the bid from the guest in room 11. Is there a higher bid? President Nan yelled. The audience was silent. Looks like number 11's team won, everyone thought. 1 billion what? Why? In an instant, the entire auction house was in an uproar. Everyone's gaze swept towards private room number 24. Many pairs of eyes widened as they tried to see through the curtain to see who was sitting inside. To directly raise the price from 700 million to 1 billion. Just for 2 pills, this price increase was indeed a little too much. Hey, here's $1 billion for you. A strange, complacent laughter came from room 11. When everyone saw this, they no longer had any doubts in their hearts. Indeed, this person was only trying to trick them. The elixir that could have been bought for 500 million had now doubled the price. Damn, he's really ruthless. Judging from his voice, it seems to be Liao Rui from the blood refining hall. Oh, Liao Rui? If that's the case, then isn't the person in room 20 someone from Mount Kunliu? The audience began to speculate in low voices. Everyone knew that the blood refining hall and Mount Kunliu were mortal enemies. The only people who could be targeted by Liao Rui in such a manner were the disciples of Mount Kunliu. Congratulations to the young master in room 24 for winning the 2 elixirs. A sweet smile hung on President Nan's face as she gestured for the maidservant beside her to bring the items over. Looking at the smiling maidservant, most of the audience were happy to see this. After all, they were not the ones who suffered losses, so it was not bad to watch this kind of show. Young master, your elixir. The maidservant brought the brocade box with the 2 elixirs to private room number 24 and respectfully walked to Chu Hen's side. Looking at the 2 elixirs in the box, Su Lang, Fu Qin, and Jishu secretly shook their heads. It was really not worth it. However, Chu Hen accepted the brocade box without hesitation and casually took out an ordinary storage ring and handed it to her. There are 20,000 beast fruits inside. Please check. The price of 1,000 beast fruit was estimated to be 50 million upper-grade primordial crystal stones, so 20 of them would be exactly 1 billion. The maidservant took it with both hands with a smile and respectfully replied, President Nan has already told me that young Master Chu is trustworthy. There is no need to check the trading chips. Chu Hen smiled. He had to admit that President Nan really knew how to win people's hearts. In fact, it did not matter much whether the trading chips were checked or not. After all, the people who could sit in the private room were basically people from some big forces. With their status, why would they play any tricks? Even if someone had such intentions, they would have to weigh their own strength to see if they could cheat under the nose of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. The transaction was soon over, and the maidservant left respectfully. As soon as the maidservant left, Hua Shui could not help but shout, You're too wasteful. I can also refine these 2 elixirs, and the total cost is less than 150 million. I'm really going to die from anger. Even if you're rich, you can't play like this. Ji Shu, Su Lang, and the others also shook their heads speechlessly. However, Chu Hen smiled faintly and handed the brocade box to Chi Tong and Lu Qi behind him. Chi Tong, you take the Tiger Powers Saint Pill. Lu Qi, you take the Heavenly Dragon Saliva Pill. Chu Hen's sudden action immediately stunned everyone, especially Chi Tong and Lu Qi, who had a look of surprise on their faces. These two elixirs were actually bought for the two of them? They originally thought that Chu Hen wanted to use these two elixirs to prepare for his breakthrough to the profound world realm in the future. Who would have thought that it was not for themselves? Lu Qi clenched his fists lightly, as if he was at a loss. Take it. It's only 20,000 beast fruits. It's not like it's anything special. Chu Hen said it very lightly. Indeed, 20,000 beast fruits were nothing to him. There were dozens of them in the storage equipment obtained from the man from the Fong clan. At present, in this team, Chi Tong and Lu Qi had the lowest cultivation. Both of them were only at the 4th level of the void-piercing realm. Of course, this was not because the two of them were poor in talent, but purely because the external help was too little. Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua all came out from the mysterious realm of the Flying Immortal, and their strength had greatly increased. With the help of these two elixirs, the two of them basically had no problem breaking through to the later stage of the void-piercing realm. Chi Tong and Lu Qi took the elixirs one after another. Their expressions were moved, and there was a deep warmth in their hearts. Don't say words of gratitude. Chu Hen smiled warmly. I can't stand the politeness between friends. The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Hua Shui also couldn't help but feel ashamed that she had wrongly accused Chu Hen just now. Although she was willing to admit her mistake in her heart, she still refused to admit defeat verbally. TSK what? Why didn't you say so earlier? Otherwise, I'll help you bargain and see if I can get 1 or 200 million less. The few of them were amused. Chu Hen rubbed his nose and said with a smile, just treat it as a rich person's addiction. Next is the 4th auction item, the 1,000 beast fruit. President Nan's high-pitched voice immediately stunned Chu Hen and the others. Everyone's gaze immediately shifted to the auction stage. The maidservant was holding a tray with a beautiful red cloth on it. President Nan removed the red cloth, revealing a row of glistening fruits, causing everyone's eyes to light up. I believe everyone is familiar with the effects of the 1,000 beast fruit, right? President Nan said firmly. She subconsciously glanced at room 24 and said, the 1,000 beast fruit has the ability to strengthen the bloodline of demonic beasts. It also has the magical effect of getting close to demonic beasts. It's not an exaggeration to say that 1,000 beast fruit can allow you to obtain a beast emperor as a demonic pet. F***CK. This woman is really good at tricking people. Su Lang couldn't help but curse. Dan Jun rubbed her chin and smiled. She's not lying. If you're lucky, you can indeed obtain the help of a beast emperor. How lucky would that be? The atmosphere in the hall immediately became lively. President Nan raised her arm and said loudly, 10,000 beast fruits. The starting price is 400 million high-grade crystals. 400 million. Previously, they had bought it from Chu Hen for 500 million. It was the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce's usual style. Even if they sold it at the starting price, they would not suffer too much of a loss. However, it was obvious that the 10,000 beast fruits were worth more than that. 450 million, 500 million, 600 million, 600 million, 700 million. The continuous bids echoed in the hall. In room 24, Chu Hen and the others already felt like they had been scammed by the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. It had only been a short while, but the price had already exceeded their estimated price of 200 million. They were truly unscrupulous. It was true that all businessmen were cunning. Of course, then again, the location where an item was placed depended on its value. If it wasn't for the special occasion today, where the people sitting here were all wealthy people from influential factions, they would not be competing with each other so fiercely. The Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce knew how to make use of the opportunity. They used the heaven and earth black-yellow badge as the biggest gimmick, then introduced some more eye-catching items so that the crowd could compete for it. 750 million, 850 million, 830 million. The price continued to rise, but after it exceeded 700 million, the number of people bidding obviously decreased. 1 billion. At this moment, the voice that came from room 11 directly suppressed the noisy scene. It was Liao Rui from the blood refining hall again. 120 million. An indifferent voice came from room 2. The crowd was slightly startled. The person in room 2 was the one who had won the first fiery sword. 130 million. Liao Rui continued to raise the price. The people in room 2 stopped bidding. Although the crowd was rich, they were not stupid. 130 million had already far exceeded the value of the 1,000 beast fruits. The effects of the 1,000 beast fruits were indeed miraculous, but there was a certain probability of success if one wanted to lure a beast emperor. Therefore, after Liao Rui's bid of 130 million, the entire hall fell silent. 150 million. Suddenly, a calm voice broke the short silence once more. Everyone's gaze swept toward room 24. Even President Nan was startled. She knew better than anyone else who had bought the 1,000 beast fruits from. What did that person mean? 160 million. Liao Rui from the blood refining hall spoke again. 180 million. Another voice did not want to be outdone. 220 million. 120 million. Wow. The atmosphere in the auction hall was starting to get out of control. Everyone's gaze kept sweeping back and forth between room 11 and room 24. Were the blood refining hall and Mount Kunliu planning to fight today? 230 million. The frivolous voice added another 200 million worth of chips. Many people gasped. They deserved to be from the blood refining hall. They were really rich and overbearing. The starting price of 400 million was actually sold at a sky-high price of 230 million high-grade crystal stones. Even President Nan was extremely surprised. Was Mount Kunliu going to continue bidding? 24. The long and gentle voice spread out like a thin stream of water. The crowd's hearts were in their throats. Meanwhile, the fair-skinned face behind the curtain in room 11 curled up into a proud sneer. She said in a low and disdainful voice, "What an idiot." However, she did not finish the word idiot. Chapter 670. 24. Forget it. I can't afford it anymore. I don't want it anymore. You can have it for 3 billion. The indifferent and casual tone of voice suddenly changed as it came from room 24 in a mocking tone. In an instant, the entire auction hall fell into a dead silence. In the next second, a wave of unprecedented exclamations erupted. Boom! F***CKME. This is F***King Ruthless. Bang! A muffled sound that sounded like a table and chair being smashed came from room 11. Suddenly, everyone seemed to be able to feel the flames of anger emanating from Liao Rui through the curtain. Not only did he fail to scam others, he was scammed instead. Previously, he had caused Mount Kunliu to lose an additional 500 million. Now, in the blink of an eye, the other party had directly made Liao Rui bleed profusely, taking out 3 billion in an instant. How could the word ruthless describe this? The situation changed too quickly, and everyone present was caught off guard. They could not help but look at room 24 a few more times. They wanted to see who was sitting inside through the curtain. He actually had the guts to raise the price to more than 2 billion. One had to know that this kind of thing was actually very difficult to control. If one was not careful, it would backfire. If one did not injure the enemy, they would be playing themselves to death. If it was an ordinary person, they would not have the courage to do so. This rascal, President Nan, who was on the auction stage, tried hard not to laugh out loud. She thought Chu Han had a screw loose in his head and wanted to buy these 1,000 beast fruits back. She did not expect it to be revenge for being scammed earlier. Needless to say, this counterattack was really ruthless. However, even if they fought to the death, it would only benefit the Northern Qian Trading Company. The 10,000 beast fruits that they bought for 500 million have been sold for a sky-high price of 3 billion. Today, the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce had definitely made a killing today. 3 billion. Is there anyone else who can offer a higher price than this? If there isn't, these 10,000 beast fruits will belong to the guest in room 11. Everyone in the auction hall looked like they were watching a joke. Most likely, Liao Rui was hoping that someone would call out a higher price, even if it was just one more primal crystal stone. However, no one was such a fool. In the end, the final decision was made. Amidst all kinds of noises, the maidservant smiled and carried the 10 wanshou fruits towards room 11. At this moment, everyone in room 24 was overjoyed, especially Hua Xue, Su Lang, and the others. They were beaming with joy. This is so King awesome. This is more satisfying than killing the people of the blood refining hall. Su Lang laughed while holding his stomach. I really admire you more and more. Hua Xue put one hand on Chu Hen's shoulder. Like a little madwoman, she laughed so hard that her face turned red. Please accept my knee. And mine. Me too. Even Dan Zhun, who had always been cold and stern, couldn't help but laugh. I really want to see Liao Rui's face. Speaking of which, aren't you worried that he'll turn around and trick you again? Chu Hen raised his eyebrows and smiled playfully. I'm just lucky. Dan Zhun shook his head. He couldn't see through Chu Hen more and more. It was definitely not as simple as good luck that he could achieve this. Perhaps at the beginning, Liao Rui really wanted those wanshou fruits. It could be seen from the fact that he called out several times in a row. But after it exceeded 5 billion, he began to trick Chu Hen. As long as Chu Hen hesitated a little, he might be tricked by Liao Rui. But from the beginning to the end, Chu Hen was quite calm. His calm mind was far beyond that of ordinary people. Dan Zhun gradually felt that Chu Hen indeed had the ability to accomplish great things on his body. After this interlude, the auction continued. Perhaps because of the previous example, all the forces were obviously more cautious in the following major auctions. They didn't deliberately raise the price, and they didn't fight for face so as to avoid tricking themselves and benefiting the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. As time went by, the transactions of the goods were completed one after another. Next is the last auction item. It's also the finale of today's auction. It's also the item that everyone has been waiting for. Wow! President Nan's voice was sonorous and powerful. Her expression was clearly more serious than before. The atmosphere in the auction hall gradually became more intense than before. The crowd in the spectator seats were full of anticipation and enthusiasm. Is it finally the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow order? I wonder which token it is. Damn it, I hope the price isn't too high. I only have 3 billion upper-grade primordial crystal stones. In my opinion, 3 billion is too low. The wanshou fruit was sold for 3 billion just now. I don't think it's possible. The people from the various forces were restless. It was as if they couldn't wait to leave their seats. However, when they saw the cold and gloomy young figure below the auction stage, they obediently sat down and didn't dare to move. Lu Chuanfeng stood at the side of the aisle on the right side of the auction stage. He crossed his arms in front of him and leaned against the wall with a lazy smile on his face. With him here, the people in the ordinary seats, even the disciples of the various forces, wouldn't dare to move recklessly. Under the intense gaze of the crowd, 5 people walked out from the back of the auction stage. These 5 people weren't the weak young maidservants from before. Instead, they were 5 burly, strong guards in armor. The guard in the middle was holding a sturdy iron box with both hands. The other 4 guards were standing at the 4 corners of the stage. They held cold spears in their hands and had an awe-inspiring aura. Their gazes were as sharp as lightning, and they were fully on guard. It was obvious that they were all experts. Seeing this, the crowd didn't doubt it at all. The item inside the iron box was definitely the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow order. It was enough to show how much the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce valued the token. The 5 people walked onto the auction stage. President Nan had a beautiful smile on her face. She walked to the side of the guard in the middle and carefully opened the iron box. A fan-shaped, dark golden token appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The token was the size of a palm, and it looked like a quarter of a circle. There were intricate patterns carved on it, giving off a heavy and thick feeling. In the middle of the patterns, there was a sharp word: Earth. Heaven and Earth black yellow order, Earth order. Hua. All sorts of noises could be heard. There were exclamations of surprise and desire. On the other hand, the people from Kuan, Lushan, and Room 24 were slightly disappointed. It's actually the Earth order. I came for nothing. Previously at the wind-soaring origin, Chu Hen first obtained a mystic order in the western tower of the ancient city. Then, he killed the man from the Fong clan and obtained the Earth order. In other words, the only ones that were useful to Chu Hen were the Heaven order and the Yellow order. As for the other two, they were useless. The starting price of this Earth order is 1 billion high-grade primal crystal stones. Without wasting any time, President Nin immediately announced the starting price. For a Heaven and Earth black yellow order, a starting price of 1 billion was considered low. However, it did not matter. Even if it was a starting price of 100 million, the Northern Qian Trading Company was confident that they would not suffer a loss, as expected. A crazy bidding war that was far more intense than before began. 1. 5 billion, 2 billion. 2. 8 billion. 3. 5 billion. 4 billion. Madness, absolute madness. Many of the people who did not speak earlier were like beasts that had been awakened. One after another, they shouted astronomical numbers that ordinary people would not be able to reach in their entire lives. As for those who had only brought 3 or 4 billion high-grade primal crystal stones, they were on the verge of tears. Why couldn't he just have a good time with her? They did not even have the chance to pretend to be rich. The battle for the Heaven and Earth black-yellow order was like a war without any smoke. At this time, it was time to compare the resources of the various forces. Meanwhile, the people from the Northern Qian Trading Company were also in a state of high concentration at all times. Before the auction ended, anything could happen. Chapter 671. 4 billion. 4.5 billion. 4.5 billion. 5 billion. The auction of the Heaven and Earth Yellow Order was like a war without gunpowder. It instantly ignited the competition. In a short time, the price had exceeded 5 billion upper-grade primordial crystal stones. From a starting price of 1 billion, it had increased by more than 5 times, and there was no sign of stopping. When it broke through 4 billion, the audience in the ordinary seats had already become spectators. As for those who came with 2 or 3 billion upper-grade primordial crystal stones, they didn't even have the right to speak. Countless people present had greatly underestimated the influence of the Heaven and Earth Yellow Order. In other words, they had greatly underestimated the temptation of the ancient desolation Heaven realm. 5.5 billion. 5.5 billion. 6 billion. Continuous voices came out from the private rooms behind the curtains. After breaking through the 6 billion mark, the number of people bidding obviously began to decrease sharply. After all, for any big force, 6 billion upper-grade primordial crystal stones was not a small number. 6.5 billion. A familiar voice came out from the number 24 room. Everyone was stunned and looked up, thinking that the people from Mount Kuan-Lu had started to show their strength again. Chu Hanyu. In the private room, Hua Xue, Ji Shu, and the others looked at Chu Hen with surprise. They had already got the Earth Order. Why did they participate in the bidding now? They just wanted to ask, but Chu Hen waved his hand, indicating that they would talk about it later. 6.5 billion. Another familiar low voice came out. It was Liao Rue in the number 11 room. Did Chu Hen want to cheat the people from the blood refining hall? They thought in their hearts. 6.5 billion. Chu Hen continued to shout. 6.5 billion. Liao Rue followed closely. 6.5 billion. Chu Hen shouted again. 7.5 billion. After 7 billion, Chu Hen didn't continue to follow up. The atmosphere in the auction hall continued to rise, and all kinds of exclamations and envious voices came one after another. Damn, 7 billion. The King Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce is going to make a killing. The blood refining hall is really fierce. I didn't expect that they could still offer a sky-high price of $7 billion after offering $3 billion. Their foundation is really strong. Mount Kunlun doesn't seem to be following us anymore. It looks like they are planning to give up. The $7 billion of the blood refining hall almost suppressed all the competitors present. In room 24, Huashua looked at Chu Hin in surprise and said, "You made him pay another billion." Chu Hin smiled and shook his head. How's he chimed in? "You're wrong. Chu Hin isn't trying to raise the price for him." "Isn't that so? Then why?" "To confuse others and make them think that we don't have the heaven and earth mystic yellow token," Housie explained. Currently, many powerful forces had gathered in Songhai City. The situation was complicated. The most important thing was not to let others know if they had the heaven and earth mystic yellow token. More importantly, they should not let others know how many heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens they had. In the previous two auctions, Chu Hin's side had already displayed great competitiveness. If they didn't participate in the bidding this time, people with discerning eyes would be able to guess that they definitely had an earth token with them. By then, unnecessary trouble would be unavoidable. Therefore, Chu Hin continuously increased the price to give everyone a false hint. He wanted to tell everyone that he also wanted the earth token, but he didn't have enough chips, so he had to give up. $7 billion. President Nan still had a surprised smile on his face. Previously, when they were evaluating the heaven and earth mystic yellow token, their expected target was around $5 billion. This was already more than $1 billion higher than expected. One had to admit that today's auction was very successful. They only needed to wait until the last step of the transaction was completed. If there's no higher bid, the owner of the earth token will be the VIP in room number 11. At this point, it was difficult to increase the bid. However, at this moment, an indifferent and frivolous voice suddenly rang out from private room number 2. $8 billion. Rumble. The voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder when it reached the crowd's ears, causing their hearts to tremble. The person who had directly increased the bid by $1 billion instantly suppressed the crowd. Everyone's gaze subconsciously turned to private room number 2. It was the person who had won the first auction item, the fiery sword. Who was this person? How could he calmly offer a sky-high price of $8 billion? $8 billion was enough to suppress the entire auction hall. The rooms fell into silence. One could only faintly hear the whispers of conversations. It was obvious that the various forces were secretly discussing and hesitating. $8 billion going once? President Nan was extremely excited. Even the upper echelons of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce in the back felt their heartstrings tighten. The price had exceeded the expected price of $5 billion. With the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Badge, the Chamber of Commerce was going to make a fortune. $8 billion going twice. There was still no response. The crowd secretly shook their heads. In the end, the hammer struck. $8 billion going thrice. Boom! Accompanied by a huge uproar, the Earth token was sold at the sky-high price of $8 billion. It was a figure that many people in the world could never reach in their lifetime. For example, when Chu Hin was in Burning Rain City, he only earned a few mid-grade origin crystal stones a month. According to the exchange rate of 100, 8 billion high-grade origin crystal stones was equivalent to 8 billion mid-grade origin crystal stones. The difference was huge. Congratulations to the young master in room number 2. President Nan raised his hand slightly. His eyes were glowing as he said, "Bring the Earth token to that young master." The 5 guards with imposing auras nodded. They stepped down from the table in unison and entered the hallway. Everyone in the audience craned their necks. They were both envious and moved. There were even many people who had expressions of eagerness on their faces. However, when they saw the cold gaze of Lu Chuanfeng, who was leaning against the wall, the crowd immediately suppressed the restlessness in their hearts. Hee, I believe everyone here is somewhat disappointed, but those who didn't get the Earth token, don't be discouraged. In 3 days, we will have another auction, and we will have another Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow token as the finale. Please look forward to it, honorable guests. President Nan said with a smile. Oh, There was another heaven and earth mystic yellow token for auction. The crowd's heart skipped a beat. President Nan, what kind of token is it? Tell us. That's right. Let's have an idea. The crowd began to ask questions. President Nan said with a charming smile, I'll leave you guys in suspense for now, but it's definitely not the Earth token. Not the Earth token. This time, the hearts of the various forces were once again filled with anticipation. It looks like I'll have to stay for a few more days, mumbled Chu Hen in room number 24. The others nodded. After all, they did not know the whereabouts of the other heaven and earth mystic yellow tokens. Instead of wandering around outside, it was better to wait and see. Meanwhile, the 5 guards had already escorted the metal box containing the heaven and earth mystic yellow token to the auction's central hallway. Everyone present couldn't help but secretly guess who was in the second room. Judging from his voice, he was around 25 or 26 years old. He must be a young genius from a powerful faction. Buzz. Suddenly, the airflow in the air began to tremble. At that instant, Lu Chuanfeng, who was at the front of the hallway, raised his eyebrows. His eyes emitted a cold glint. Watch out, what? The sudden cry was like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's minds. Everyone present turned pale with fright. The 5 guards guarding the ground token also hurriedly gathered together as a powerful aura erupted from their bodies. Boom. Following, there was an extremely cold aura. The cold aura swept across the place like an undercurrent from the deep sea, directly covering every corner. In the next moment, an incomparably dazzling light suddenly descended from the sky. It was as dazzling as the sun, and the pupils of everyone in the auction hall shrank to the size of a needle. They instantly fell into a temporary state of blindness. Everything in front of them was shrouded by the strong light, and nothing could be seen clearly. Following that, a miserable scream and the sound of the heavy object being penetrated intertwined. Everyone's hearts trembled, and they subconsciously backed away, causing an even more chaotic collision. What was that? In the private room, Chu Hen's pupils also shrank into a dot because of the strong light. However, he had the demon eye bloodline, so his eyesight was definitely better than the others. Amidst the endless bright light, a blurry black shadow flashed by like a ghost. And the figure of the blurry black shadow was so familiar. It was the mysterious black-clothed man from Haitian City. Chu Hen's heartstrings trembled, and waves of raging waves rose in his heart. Chapter 672. Boom! An icy aura, along with a powerful gust of wind, swept across the place without any warning. Miserable screams and the sound of human bodies being penetrated reverberated in the air, instantly causing a huge commotion in the auction hall. An endless blinding light filled every corner of the hall. Being stimulated by the strong light, the crowd subconsciously closed their eyes and covered their eyes with their hands. In just 2 seconds, the blinding light disappeared. The chaos in the auction hall was like an erupting volcano and a tsunami, causing the crowd to flee in all directions. President Nan and the upper echelons of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce who were standing on the auction stage had a drastic change of expression. Their faces were as pale as paper. The 5 experts guarding the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Medallion were all killed on the spot. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were filled with terror as they died with grievances. Meanwhile, the metal box containing the Earth Medallion had disappeared without a trace. Lockdown Hall. Quickly lock down the entire Northern Azure Tower. Don't let that thief escape. The upper echelons of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce were furious. This was the first time someone dared to kill someone and rob them right under their noses. President Nan hurriedly ran to the door of room number 2 and said anxiously, "Young master, please put it down. We must retrieve the Earth Medallion as soon as possible. Please return to the guest hall to rest and wait. I'll give you 2 days. If you retrieve the Earth Medallion, the deal is still valid." An indifferent and frivolous voice came from the room. President Nan nodded solemnly. "I'm really sorry. We're willing to complete the deal for 5 billion. The 500 million will be our apology to you, young master." We'll talk about it after we retrieve it. The guard with spears in their hands hurriedly came out to maintain order. Oomph. Lu Chuanfeng's ice-cold eyes emitted a cold, sharp light. He raised his head and saw that a hole about 2 meters wide had appeared in the ceiling of the venue. It was obvious that the person was hiding in the crowd. He was waiting for an opportunity to use the Aurora technique to affect the crowd's vision, then killed the 5 guards amidst the chaos before escaping through the ceiling. The method was swift and decisive. This is the first time someone dared to play tricks in front of me. A cold glint flickered between Lu Chuanfeng's brows. In an instant, the entire Northern Azure House had sunk into various kinds of chaos. Looking down from the sky, one could see powerful figures with piercingly cold auras rapidly gushing out from all directions of the Northern Azure House. With this as the center, the noise and chaos spread to the entire city. What's going on? What happened? Someone attacked the auction and stole the Heaven and Earth Black-Yellow Order. Damn, who's so fierce? I don't know. Hurry up and find that person. The Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce being attacked by a mysterious person was definitely a sensational matter in the entire city. And the fact that the attacker had stolen the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow token was even more explosive news. Hearing that they could find the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow token as long as they found the mysterious man, countless people's eyes lit up. The idea of fishing in troubled waters arose in many people's hearts. As long as he obtained that Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow token, he would directly save a few billion high-grade essence crystal stones. Although the probability was low, it was definitely worth a try. Not only those people from all walks of life, even the people from the various major forces had the same idea. Since the Earth Order wasn't in the hands of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce, the original owner wouldn't be able to do anything if he snatched it from someone else. Even if he wanted to get it back, he could force the token to ask for a higher price and ruthlessly rip them off. The Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce was also worried about such a situation. Since the various major forces were all rushing towards the Earth Order, who would care so much if chaos broke out? Therefore, they had to retrieve the Earth Order before the various forces made their move. In an instant, the entire city began to search as various groups spread out in all directions. All the streets, big and small, were seething with excitement and were in chaos. Where's Chu Hen? At this moment, the group from Mount Kunliu who had just exited the auction hall suddenly realized that Chu Hen had disappeared. Everyone looked at each other. Because the situation was too chaotic, no one noticed when Chu Hen had left. Where's he? Nongqi. Since Chu Hen's aura. Danjin said. Okay. Nongqi put her palms together and formed a seal with her 10 fingers. She closed her beautiful eyes and a strange energy wave began to be released from her body. After about 20 seconds, the energy outside Nongqi's body began to converge. How is it? Where is he? Hua Shui asked. Facing everyone's confused gaze, Nongqi shook her head helplessly. The entire city is too chaotic and there are too many auras. I can't focus on searching. What? Everyone was stunned. Nongqi's sensing ability couldn't even spread out. One could imagine how chaotic Shanghai City was at this moment. Danjin couldn't help but frown. He left without even saying goodbye. It seems like the matter is very urgent. Could it be that the person who snatched the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Order knows Chu Hen? Her words woke everyone up from their dreams. Everyone's expression turned even weirder. After all, it was Chu Hen's first time in Victorious East State. It was impossible for him to know anyone. Take Rat, for example. It was also a chance encounter between old acquaintances. In that case, there was only one possibility. Could it be that person is Yi Yao? Everyone started to feel uneasy. The development of the matter seemed to be getting more and more out of their expectations. But no matter what, the top priority was to find Chu Hen. Swoosh! Swoosh! Numerous figures flashed through the streets and alleys of Shanghai City in a hurry. Everyone started to track down the person at full speed. However, although the scene was huge, there didn't seem to be a clear target because no one could see clearly who snatched the Heaven and Earth Mystic Yellow Order. Everyone could only guess based on their vague sensing ability. In this way, everyone in the city looked like a thief. At this moment, a lithe figure was moving quietly in a remote alley. It was a person in black who was dressed lightly. She wore a black hoodie that covered her entire face. It was hard to see her face clearly. However, from her figure, it could be vaguely seen that she was a woman. She was moving very fast and very carefully. She didn't startle anyone. Another 2 miles or so ahead was the west gate of Shanghai City. Like a cat, she used the various buildings to hide her figure. She was not in a hurry and flew toward the city gate in an extremely stable manner. As long as she left the city, the people chasing after her would not be able to do anything to her. Swoosh! However, just as her figure moved and was about to fly past the tall and imposing city gate, a hurried sound of rushing wind suddenly came from behind. Her heart was alarmed as she hastily did an agile somersault in the air. Hiss! A soft sound rang out as an incomparably swift and fierce green wind blade brushed past her face. The sharp aura directly cut open her black mask. Following that, a head of beautiful ink-like hair slid down from the gap. Through the slit of the black cloth, one could vaguely see a small side of the other party's face. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips were small, and her nose was exquisite. It was undoubtedly a young woman. Then, dozens of armed guards rushed out and surrounded her in the middle. At the same time, a cold and sinister young figure flashed to the front of the city wall. It was an expert from the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce, Lu Chuanfeng. Humph! Lu Chuanfeng looked down at the person with a cold and disdainful sneer on his face. Chapter 673. Damn girl. Let's see where you can escape to. The cold wind rustled as a cold current rose in the air. Dozens of Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce guards wielding sharp weapons immediately surrounded the lady in black. On top of the city wall, Lu Chuanfeng looked down from above, his cold eyes staring at the lady like a wolf in the night. No one can escape from under my Lu Chuanfeng's eyes. You killed President Lu in Haitian City, and today you came to Shanghai City under my jurisdiction to behave atrociously. You're really courting death, Lu Chuanfeng sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. The black-clothed woman remained silent. Through the black veil that was torn open by the wind blades, one could vaguely see half of her calm face. With her fair skin and exquisite nose and mouth, it was not difficult to see that she was a beautiful woman with a pretty face. Hand over the earth token and obediently allow yourself to be captured, Lu Chuanfeng shouted in a deep voice in an irresistible tone. The lady in black's figure moved slightly as a strange energy wave spread out from her body. It was obvious that she had no intention of surrendering. You asked for it. Lu Chuanfeng didn't say anything else. His throat moved slightly as he coldly shouted, "Cripple her hands and feet, but keep her alive." Yes. Before he finished his sentence, the guards immediately burst out with a fierce aura of true yuan and charged towards the lady in black. Each and every one of them was ferocious like a pack of tigers and wolves. If it was any other time, Lu Chuanfeng wouldn't even say a word and would directly choose to kill without mercy. But the person in front of him had first killed President Lu in Haitian City, and today she snatched the Earth token from the Northern Azure Tower. No one would believe that there was no mastermind behind her. Kill. Dozens of guards with towering auras brandished the sharp weapons in their hands and slashed at the lady in black. This scene looked like a weak little lamb in the midst of a pack of wolves. However, this seemingly weak little lamb was a mysterious figure who had killed nearly 100 powerful experts in Haitian City. Whoosh! Abruptly, the black-clothed woman rushed towards a guard like a nimble cat. She stretched out her left hand and waved it in the air like a willow. The surrounding space formed a strange rhythm. Her fair palm bounced off the enemy's saber with the force of a small force. Then, her right palm quickly struck out. 2 cyclones, one black and one white, spun rapidly in the center of her palm. Yin-yang sky palm. Along with a clear and cold voice, the palm force that had gathered yin and yang energy directly smashed into the guard's chest. With a muffled sound, a bloody hole instantly appeared on the guard's chest. His shattered internal organs flew out from the shock. What a domineering palm attack. What a ruthless girl. The faces of all the guards slightly changed, and fear surged in their hearts. At the same time, 7 to 8 sharp spears tore through the air and pierced towards the black-clothed woman with a colorful light of death. The woman tilted her body slightly and waved her arms in the air. All the spiritual energy in the world gathered between her palms. 2 illusory shadows of light, one black and one white, appeared from her hands. They played with the universe, and the stars moved. In an instant, a black and white light pattern spread out in all directions with her as the center. Bang! A monstrous force like an undercurrent in the deep sea immediately erupted from within, and a terrifying impact spread out in all directions. A series of loud sounds rang out, and the sharp spears that were stabbing towards her were all shattered. The bodies of the guards also shook violently, and they all spat out mouthfuls of blood as they retreated. Even though she was fighting one against many, the black-clothed woman was not at a disadvantage at all. On the other hand, Lu Chuanfeng, who was standing on top of the city wall, looked forward with an indifferent expression. He was not the least bit anxious. In his eyes, the black-clothed woman was already a cornered beast. As long as he was here, she would not be able to escape. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the dozens of guards were injured. The remaining people's attacks became more and more intense, and the power they released became more and more powerful. The saber light and sword chi were dazzling. The shadows of the spears and the radiance of the spears were like rainbows. The Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce was not in a hurry. Although the people from various forces in Shanghai City had been attracted by the commotion here, Lu Chuanfeng had found her first. Even if the others wanted the Earth token, they could not find an excuse to interfere. However, for the black-clothed woman, the more people there were, the more disadvantageous the situation was for her. Sensing the chaotic and mottled auras coming from inside Shanghai City, the black-clothed woman's body suddenly erupted with an unprecedentedly powerful aura buzz. A mighty true core energy was released from her body. She held the fierce and domineering white energy of Yang in one hand and the cold and bone-chilling black energy of Yin in the other. The Yin and Yang energies seemed to be under her control. Wah! The next moment, the black-clothed woman pushed her hands outward, and a strange Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern spread out in the void. Heaven and earth were overshadowed. The experts of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce were all shocked when they saw a Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern hovering under their feet. The huge Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern was hundreds of feet in diameter, and its area reached the feet of every guard. From a distance, it looked like they were stepping on the Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern. The Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern began to rotate in a clockwise direction. What was even more shocking was that the black-clothed woman's eyes behind the mask emitted a strange light. Her normal eyes suddenly transformed into a demonic Tai Chi pattern. What? The pupils of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern? Even Lu Chuanfeng could not help but frown. This was the first time he had seen such a situation. Endless coldness surged from the black-clothed woman's eyes. She moved, and as she dashed out, her powerful aura shook the sky. Sky dance of the moon, thousand phantoms, boom! The space was distorted, and violent energy waves surged around every expert of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce. In the next moment, an illusory phantom appeared behind each of them. It was like a dream, real and fake at the same time. All the phantoms were the clones created by the black-clothed woman, but the aura they exuded was terrifying. In an instant, all the clones attacked at the same time, and a surging palm energy poured down. Boom! Bang! Dozens of violent shock waves exploded in the sky, and all kinds of dazzling lights were like stars competing for brilliance. Screams were heard one after another, and all the experts of the Northern Qian Chamber of Commerce had their chests pierced by the powerful force. Blood rained down, and like birds with broken wings, they fell to the ground and became corpses. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After killing dozens of experts of the Northern Qin Chamber of Commerce in an instant, the scattered phantoms in the surroundings quickly gathered together and returned to the black-clothed woman's body in an overlapping form. Witnessing this scene, Lu Chuanfeng's pupils shrank slightly, and a murderous intent surged in his eyes. He had never thought that this vicious girl in front of him would have such a powerful ability to kill dozens of his subordinates in the blink of an eye. Hey, Lu Chuanfeng smiled coldly, and then his body shone with a green light, and an extremely agitated energy wave rapidly gathered in his right palm. I'm sorry for underestimating your strength. Now let me do it myself. With a light and mocking laugh, Lu Chuanfeng waved his hand. Whoosh! An extremely solid green wind blade shot out like a flying shuttle, and a vigorous air wave dragged out in the void. Its speed was so fast that it was like a flying arrow traversing the stars. The black-clothed woman, who had just performed a big move, had already used up her previous strength and had yet to generate new strength, so it was difficult for her to block the opponent's attack. In a hurry, the black-clothed woman dodged to one side, and with a nimble dodge, the extremely lethal wind blade swept past her shoulder, and a strand of her black hair quietly slid down from the side of her face. You dodged it pretty fast, but Lu Chuanfeng's eyes suddenly turned fierce, and a trace of ferociousness rose in his voice. The wind blade I released is not so easy to dodge. Ha! What? The black-clothed woman was startled, and before she could react, a rapid, wind-breaking force suddenly attacked her from behind. The wind blade, just now, actually drew an arc in the air, and once again spun back, with a piercingly cold lethality that tore the air apart and rolled up a terrifying power. Bang! With a muffled sound, the wind blade hit the black-clothed woman's back like a boomerang.